Welcome to the Business of Politics. We're live here tonight. The unprecedented events of the past year have been both tested the Virgin Islands financially, emotionally, and operationally. As a result, our executive leadership has been forced to find innovative solutions in the areas from economic stability and education to healthcare and public safety. The governor has promised that tonight we will hear about plans to restore trust in government, deliver on his commitment to transparency, and ensure a swift completion of disaster recovery. Ali, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great.
As a journalist at the forefront of the daily breaking news stories, what are your thoughts about tonight? What are your expectations for the year 2021 State of Territory address? What do you think he will say? And more importantly, how do you think it'll be received by the community?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's so great to be with you here, Dotson and Ashley and the viewing audience. You know, what an incredible time in our history, right? And I think that for the territory, we can expect the governor to start first with COVID. I mean, that's the conversation that we speak of every day with our loved ones, with our family, with our job, everybody. So where we stand, how we're moving forward, how can we keep people safe as well as keep the well-being of our economy going? That I have to believe is going to be addressed right from the jump. I would say also the economy. Where do we stand? How was last year in spite of COVID, which we all know everybody took a hit, right?
Yes,
with that, as well as gun violence in the territory.
Oh yeah.
With the VIPD and how those operations are going, what we are doing to help bring that down and eliminate that, ideally, absolutely, and then how we as a community can also support the Virgin Islands Police Department. So, I don't want to name too many things because I know there's so, but I would say those three for sure will be addressed.
Okay. Ashley, first of all, congratulations, proud dad.
Oh, thank you, appreciate it.
And as the youngest, I'm going to say the youngest tonight on our panel, since you're the youngest. And you are a future leader based on everything that we've heard and seen about you so far. What are your thoughts on this evening's State of the Territory address? Or what do you think he will say? What do you think he needs to bring up? That's very important, what he needs to bring up. And what do you think the community would like him to say tonight?
I think Ali touched on a lot of great points. COVID-19, our response to it, what's coming up next. Also, the crime issue that we're seeing in our community that's plaguing people in my generation and younger. And I also think he's going to have to address GRS, the government retirement system. He has made attempts in the past, in the past legislature, to pass some bills that he was hoping that the money that those bills generated or the savings it generated would then be put towards the system. We know that we're heading fast and furious towards that cliff. So I expect him to talk about that as well. I also expect him to address some of the disaster recovery projects that we're waiting to see. And then some other projects that we've been waiting for a while, like the Polly Joseph Stadium.
The sore spots.
Yes, the sore spots. And of course, the one uniter of all Virgin Islanders, the Water and Power Authority. Yeah. Where are we with that? What are the steps that WAPA has been taking? Is there going to be any changes? Are we adjusting our strategy, or are we any closer to the current strategy that we are, where us, the ratepayers, will be able to see benefit in our WAPA bills moving forward?
based on that, how has WAPA been for the last couple of months in the Virgin Islands? Anyone? I mean, you know, we've had rolling blackouts and whatnot, but has it been as bad, in your opinion? Has WAPA improved any that he would have to really talk about it? And
yeah, well, you know, Dotson, I think, and Ashley, I'm sure you would agree with this too, it comes with ebbs and flows. You might have a few months or weeks where it just seems like everything is very fluid, and then you have like maybe 3 days in a row where there's a lot of blackouts, right? So it's like you said, Ashley, WAPA is a topic that touches everybody in the Virgin Islands. I mean, not just here, but our loved ones on the U.S. mainland, all over the world, they hear about what we're going through. Yeah. But you know, and it's one of those things too where, you know, it can be frustrating, right? When the power goes out, your Wi-Fi goes down. But then we all know people who also work at WAPA as well, and we know how hard they're trying to work to get things smooth for everybody, and they're also affected.
Affected big time.
So yeah.
You know, what's a little disheartening is that you hear, you know, members of the community, and rightfully so, because you know you pay for service and you want service, and you know they bash WAPA, they bash the employees. It is not the employees. You know, we have you know, outdated, antiquated equipment that we're still working with.
Yeah.
And hopefully one day we'll get to that point. So hopefully we'll hear something about that. Let's go back to the issue of with respect to. We're gonna take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Give me one more time. We have to do this for the photo. Yes, thank you. Lieutenant Governor Tregenza Roach. Please be seated. We will now await the Sergeant at Arms announcement. Madam Clerk, please also recognize Mark Senator Kenneth L. Gittins as present.
Madam President, the Honorable Governor of United States Virgin Islands, Albert Bryan, Jr.
Or me. You may be seated. Bishop D.S. Eloy, Lieutenant Governor Tregenza A. Roach, Esquire, Senate President Donna Fred Gregory, and members of the 34th Legislature, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the Virgin Islands, the Honorable Reese S. Hodge, and the Honorable Justices of the Supreme Court, Presiding Judge Harold W. L. Willocks, and the Honorable Judges of the Superior Court of the Virgin Islands, Cabinet members, invited guests, and my fellow Virgin Islanders, good evening. Good evening. Just by looking at the audience present, you can tell that this year is far from normal. I extend greetings to my wife, First Lady Yolanda Bryan, the delegate to Congress, Stacey E. Plaskett, members of the judiciary, members of my cabinet and staff, and other dignitaries who are viewing us remotely this evening. Congratulations to the senators of the 34th Legislature on your election, and in most instances, your re-elections to serve the people of the Virgin Islands. For those of you who are newly elected, I encourage you to hit the ground running. Your veteran colleagues will assure you that 2 years will pass by rather quickly. Meaningful and impactful legislation requires time, thought, and collaboration. The Brian Roach administration is ready to work with you toward this end. On behalf of the Virgin Islands people, I have extended congratulations to the new President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden. I consider him our hometown president, and we look forward to the U.S. Virgin Islands being his port of solace for the next 8 years. We have much work to do, lots of work to do with the federal government. And his familiarity with our people and our issues bodes well for advancing our causes in Washington, D.C. We also congratulate Vice President Kamala Harris on her election as the first woman and person of color to hold that post in our nation's history. We look forward to the fast approaching future when a woman or a person of color occupying the highest leadership positions in our country is no longer viewed with such novelty. Our delegate to Congress, Stacey Plaskett, and I have never allowed the fact that we were not of the party in power to prevent us from aggressively pursuing the agenda of the Virgin Islands in Washington. However, the fact that we are affiliated with the National Democratic Party and now have a Democratic majority in Congress and a Democratic administration in the White House is certainly advantageous to us. We wish the delegate well in her new role on the powerful House Ways and Means Committee and welcome our continued collaboration. Last year, we found ourselves depending on the men and the women of the Virgin Islands National Guard in a new role, protecting us from an invisible enemy. The COVID-19 pandemic is an unparalleled threat to our people, and the Guard was on the front lines from the very beginning, whether it was patrolling the beaches, conducting screenings at the airports, or transporting COVID-positive patients, and now the vaccines. The Guard was there. On behalf of the people of the Virgin Islands, I offer continued gratitude to the members of the Virgin Islands Army and Air National Guard for their commitment to service. Please pray for their safety and for the safety of all Virgin Islanders serving on active duty in our armed forces. I also extend my gratitude to the dedicated and selfless Virgin Islanders who have served at the forefront of this pandemic. The staff at our hospitals, public and private medical centers, the Department of Health, our law enforcement officers, the administrative teams at the Department of Labor, VITEMA, Human Services, Education, Finance, Tourism, Licensing and Consumer Affairs, LEPC, Internal Revenue Bureau, the Office of the Lieutenant Governor, and the Office of the Disaster Recovery. All of the people who we never see but have done more than their fair share to safeguard this community. This evening, I express sincere appreciation for the part you have played in managing this unprecedented crisis. Tonight, I am pleased to appear before you for the third time as Governor of the Virgin Islands of the United States to report on the state of the territory in accordance with the revised Organic Act of 1954. Lieutenant Governor Tregenza Roach and I want you to know that we are bringing progress to our people. Last year saw the introduction of a deadly virus into the human population, the likes of which had not been seen in nearly a century. The virus quickly spread throughout every corner of the globe, impacting human civilization in unimaginable ways. Our local Department of Health immediately recognized the emerging threat and began its effort to combat the spread of the COVID-19 by activating the Emergency Operations Center on January 27th in conjunction with VITEMA. A few days later, the World Health Organization declared a public health emergency of international concern. On March 13th, we received confirmation of the first case of COVID-19 in the territory. I officially declared a state of emergency in the U.S. Virgin Islands that very same day. It is important to remember where we were at that precise time. The United States had reported 2,204 cases of COVID-19 infections and a total of 49 deaths. In less than a year, the United States has documented over 25 million cases of COVID-19 and recorded more than 400,000 deaths. Since the first case arrived in our territory, there have been considerable moments of uncertainty, worry, and outright panic. We were amidst a national shortage of personal protective equipment with insufficient surgical or N95 masks. We did not have sufficient life-saving ventilators or therapeutics to treat patients. We were concerned about the number of intensive care beds at our hospitals. We had a minimal number of viral test kits that forced us to be selected in who was eligible to be tested. While we are quite experienced in hurricane preparedness, our preparation for the global pandemic was far less than ideal. The federal authorities, they seem to be in a sad state of disarray with the virus ravaging the state of New York. We realized no one was coming to help us. We would have to manage this one on our own. At the time we declared the state of emergency, our knowledge of the virus and how it would spread was very limited. The list of symptoms we were screening for patients for continued to grow. It was weeks before we learned that most carriers of the virus could spread the virus even though they exhibited no symptoms at all. We now refer to it as asymptomatic spread. Truth be told, our knowledge of this virus is still evolving this very day. On March 23rd, recognizing the escalating danger, I issued a stay-at-home order. At the time we announced the order, I was only the 5th governor in the entire nation to make such a declaration. It was an unprecedented decision to curtail business activity in the territory to slow the spread of the virus. The decision needed to be swift and bold, and it required leadership. In truth, it was not an easy decision to make, but it proved to be the right one. Within weeks, every other state and territory within the United States had arrived at the same conclusion and issued similar stay-at-home orders, effectively shutting down the national economy. But that decision was costly. While we had considered the COVID-19 pandemic a public health crisis, we quickly realized that the response to that crisis had the potential to create a great economic calamity. In February 2020, just prior to the emergence of the pandemic, there were 672 unemployment insurance claimants. 672. At the peak of the pandemic, that number had risen to 10,669. The loss of cruise ships and airline traffic was felt by our taxi and our tour operators, the merchants on Main Street, in Frederickstead, in Christiansted, Vendors Plaza, Havenside, and Crown Bay. It also financially impacted WICO and the Port Authority. Within a mere few months into 2020, our entire life had changed. Indeed, life had changed for the nation as well as the world. We Virgin Islanders are a tough people, and our spirits are hard to break. We at our best as a community when facing hardship and adversity. The good Lord knows we've had more than our fair share of adversity. So notwithstanding the COVID-19 global pandemic and the other hurdles of 2020, it should be no surprise to you that the state of our territory is resurgent. Our response to COVID-19 was deliberate, strategic, and purposeful. We focused our attention on 4 critical parameters: monitoring and taking efforts to reduce community spread of the virus, maintaining the capacity of our healthcare system to address the hospitalization of COVID-positive patients, administering sufficient testing, and effective contact tracing. The COVID-19 crisis struck at a time when our hospitals were still in a compromised state from the storms of 2017. To ensure that we keep adequate capacity in our health facilities, our COVID task force has kept a daily inventory of the number of available intensive care beds, COVID-positive patients requiring hospitalization, and the number of ventilators that we have in use at any time. We learned from the challenges imposed on us during the early attempts to airlift patients to other hospitals that we needed to be self-sufficient. Puerto Rico made it clear that they would not take any of our patients, nor any others from the Caribbean. At the Roy Lester Schneider Hospital, we renovated an entire wing to care for COVID patients. On St. Croix, the National Guard collaborated with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for the temporary conversion of the Regional Training Institute to support the territory's coronavirus surge. This facility was one of the dozens that Army Corps and FEMA retrofitted across the country to accept COVID-19 patients when the hospitals reached their full bed capacity. As we watch the hospitals on the mainland become overcrowded with patients in the hall and trailers being pulled alongside and converted to makeshift morgues, we prepared. Thankfully, we never got to that point, not even close in the Virgin Islands. We followed the science and decided that the most effective way to limit the rapid spread of the virus was by implementing a mandatory masking requirement. We were right. While other states and local governments were indecisive on the issue, people died, and their hospitals continued to fill with COVID patients. Eventually, most governors in the country concluded that masking was essential in the response to the public health crisis. I am proud to say that we were among the first to implement a no mask, no service campaign. Now, the President of the United States is calling for a national campaign to promote mask wearing to stop the spread. A long-awaited, simple response to a very complex problem. Our testing capacity has increased immensely since the early weeks of the pandemic. We can now conduct all currently FDA-approved tests and have multiple community health partners that conduct COVID tests along with us. We want to take a little minute to thank them tonight for their contribution to this community-wide effort. To date, we have administered over 60,000 COVID tests to 40,000 individuals, some of them taking the test multiple times. There was a point last year when we became concerned that the Lime Tree Bay refinery terminal was a source of an increasing number of infections. As the largest private employer in the Virgin Islands, we understood that shutting down the facility would adversely affect hundreds of families in the Virgin Islands. These households were either fully or partially sustained from people working there. The management at Lime Tree Bay was very cooperative in helping us install the protocols. In addition to temperature screening, masking, and social distancing requirements, the refinery placed a moratorium on the import of all outside workers and began testing each and every one of its contractors and its employees every single 2 weeks. We appreciate the measures instituted by Limetree that successfully kept their employees safe and protected the wider St. Croix community. Together, we overcame our first real surge without shutting down the economy. Every single day since the state of the emergency was declared. The law enforcement arm of our COVID-19 task force has been out enforcing the public health orders. Their work has at times been tiresome and frustrating, but it remains essential to safeguarding the public from the insensitive behavior of some of the folks that endanger us all. The effort of our law enforcement has not gone unnoticed, and we, as a community, are eternally grateful to them. We realized early on that closing our airports was not a viable option for a variety of reasons, mostly understanding that many of us have health needs and we need to get out for critical care, as well as we need help to be able to come to us and get in. We ultimately focused our attention on making our ports of entry safe. We deployed our National Guard to conduct airport screenings. Those screenings became more and more sophisticated over the course of the response. We augmented the handheld thermometers with full body temperature scans. We began requiring a negative COVID result within 5 days of travel. We then deployed technology to build a travel portal for travelers to upload negative test results and receive pre-clearance prior to getting on the plane. Most recently, we leveraged our relationships with our airline partners to require proof of COVID testing prior to even boarding a flight from the United States mainland into the Virgin Islands. We not only want you to feel safe, but we want you to be safe. We are now in the midst of our vaccine distribution efforts. My team, our Department of Health, have been aggressive in ensuring that we were actively engaged in Operation Warp Speed. To the amazement of many Virgin Islanders, we received access to the coronavirus vaccine on the same schedule as the rest of the nation. We are assured by our federal partners that they will supply the quantity of vaccines that we require. It is our sincere hope that the majority of Virgin Islanders will choose to get inoculated against the virus, thereby doing their part to bring about the global herd immunity that will ultimately rid the world of COVID-19. From the onset of this crisis, we have strived to balance the three-legged stool of COVID management, protecting the public health, sustaining our economy, and respecting your individual freedoms. But of these considerations, protecting the public health has remained our highest priority. We cannot thank enough those Virgin Islanders who understood the gravity of this pandemic and did their part to protect themselves, their families, and their neighbors. Without your support, we could not and we would not have been as successful. We mourn the loss of each of the 24 Virgin Islanders who suffered untimely deaths as a result of the coronavirus. However, we know it could have been much worse. The original projections predicted 200 people, 200 Virgin Islanders dead by June. Our COVID-19 mortality rate is nowhere near the current mortality rate on the U.S. mainland. While some may debate our decisions and our methods in controlling the spread of the coronavirus, there is no debate regarding the results. We have kept our people safe. After its initial stumbling, the federal government eventually did a great job of assisting states and local governments with mitigating the economic impact of the pandemic. They provided significant aid, and our administration worked diligently to place those funds directly in the hands of local businesses and individuals to the greatest extent permissible. Through the Paycheck Protection Program, over 2,000 Virgin Islands businesses received $126 million to keep employees on the payroll and pay operating expenses. Another 1,748 businesses were able to do the same, with $93 million they received through the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. Through the tireless efforts of the employees of our local Bureau of Internal Revenue and Department of Finance, CARES Act stimulus payments were paid to 47,395 eligible Virgin Islands households, totaling nearly $79.5 million. This is the largest check run undertaken by the Virgin Islands government ever. Utilizing additional CARES Act funding, we were able to provide 7,671 local businesses with a $500 credit and over 44,000 households with a $250 credit to their light bills. The YES funds, Your Energy Stimulus, kept the lights on for many in their time of need. Thanks to the team at the Department of Human Services, we provided more than $20 million in food assistance through the pandemic EBT program to the families of over 14,000 Virgin Islands students. Also understanding our students' need for additional tools to meet the demands of virtual learning, we made sufficient funding available to the Board of Education to provide every single College Brown Virgin Islands graduate of 2020 a $1,000 scholarship towards their education. The Virgin Islands Department of Labor employees have worked around the clock to assist workers who have been displaced by the economic downturn. They have processed over 17,000 unemployment claims and paid out just under $110 million in much-needed unemployment assistance. By comparison, in prior years, the Department of Labor has never distributed more than $30 million in any one given year and has never had more than 8,000 claimants in any one year. In fact, there are only 2,500 claimants in a typical year and $8 million paid out in benefits. Once again, thank you to the hardworking employees at the Department of Labor. This year, we set record after record in service delivery in response to the challenge of COVID-19 pandemic in the Virgin Islands. In all, more than $400 million in federal pandemic aid was injected directly into our local economy. As 2019 concluded, the administration introduced the Cradle to Career and Beyond. This is an initiative that was scheduled to take shape in 2020 with a focus on curriculum and instruction. The year started off with the convening of meetings on early childhood education, career readiness, and workforce development. However, by March, we were closing schools, scrambling to save the school year, and identifying resources to support remote learning. COVID disrupted the 2019-2020 school year, but the Department of Education and its students and its teachers rose to the challenge. Our graduating seniors saw their prom and in-person graduating ceremonies become casualties of coronavirus, but I'm impressed by the tenacity of the class of 2020. All of those who graduated from high school during a historical global pandemic. Moreover, we are pleased to report that our high school graduation rate actually increased from 62.6% in 2019 to 70.9% in 2020. The Department of Education demonstrated its flexibility and creativity by successfully facilitating its first ever virtual graduations. Each student celebrated his or her accomplishment with family and friends, locally as well as those living abroad. Online viewership was high, and many of those who would have otherwise been unable to see or attend did so from the comfort of their homes. As we closed our campuses, losing the connection with at-risk families was of utmost concern. However, the flexibility of the school lunch program and partnerships with nonprofit entities such as My Brother's Workshop allowed the Department of Education to maintain daily contact with students and their families while continuing to distribute free, healthy, and nutritious meals. From March 2020 to date, our food service workers and their support staff distributed over 580,000 meals territory-wide to school-aged children as part of their No Child Goes Hungry feeding initiative. They are among the unsung heroes of the COVID front lines, and we thank them for their service to our children in this community. While we recognize the current school year has had its expected challenges, the transition to digital spaces expanded our use of technology in the education system. It increased information accessibility for parents via collaborative platforms. Through Schoolology, teachers, parents, and school administrators can monitor their grades, their attendance, assignments, and overall student performance. This administration remains committed to equipping every child with a device and has already distributed 5,265 Chromebooks or tablets and 2,150 MiFi devices so those can connect to the internet. These technological advancements are now a permanent part of our approach to education. The Department of Education has become so comfortable with the conduct of virtual events that they also conducted the annual Teacher of the Year ceremonies virtually. The events in both districts were a rousing success. Tonight, I recognize and I'm thankful for the exceptional contribution of Ms. Zara O'Reilly Bates, State Teacher of the Year 2020-2021. Congratulations also to Ms. Alicia Walters Ramos, St. Croix District Teacher of the Year. And Ms. Christina Marie L. Senosa, the St. Thomas St. John District Teacher of the Year 2020. We offer much appreciation to the entire staff of the Department of Education for their efforts and sacrifices made this challenging year. All educators have the primary goal of providing high-quality education for each student. And while many successfully infuse creativity and enthusiasm into teaching, the transition to virtual learning challenged educators to learn new skills. Many discovered that remote teaching required more than introducing new platforms for uploading lessons. It required fervent, active engagement with students, parents, and the integrated use of all these tools and an investment in their own professional development. I joined many classrooms virtually in St. Thomas, St. Croix, as well as St. John, high school and elementary. And let me tell you, our teachers are amazing. And as such, we are recognizing the instructional staff of all public schools who have also had to make personal investments to facilitate the virtual learning of students. We will be issuing over 1,300 checks to educators across the territory this week to offset their expenses as a token of our great appreciation for their contribution. We face the challenge of acquiring and distributing digital devices, retrofitting public schools in adherence to CDC guidelines, procuring cleaning services, increasing internet access and bandwidth to underserved students, assisting our graduating seniors, effectively supporting our teachers, and aiding our parochial and private school partners. We have done remarkably well in overcoming our challenges, considering that all the odds were firmly stacked against us. Undeterred by COVID-19, school repairs and educational planning for the future continues. In the upcoming weeks, we will see the return of K-3, special education, and career and technical education students to face-to-face classroom instruction. Every precaution will be taken for their safety. But we are asking for the support of this legislature, as well as you, the listening public, as we continue to design and modify our infrastructure to accommodate the return of all of our students. Our commitment to stabilizing the finances of the government has begun to pay dividends. Despite the economic challenges introduced by the global response to the virus, fiscal year 2020 was a record-breaking year for revenue generation in the territory. Our income, gross receipt, and property tax collections were at the highest levels ever. Revenues from individual income, corporate income, and gross receipt taxes all increased when compared to our first year in office. The record set our first year in office was shattered in our second year in office. Remarkably, most of this was achieved with the majority of public employees either working staggered schedules or fully remotely as part of the coronavirus protocol. As an administration, we have worked hard to improve the government's tax collection. In fiscal year 2020, the Office of the Lieutenant Governor collected $37.8 million in current year property tax revenue, a 52% increase from the prior fiscal year. Perhaps even more importantly, during that same period, the tax collector's office collected an additional $25.1 million in delinquent property tax revenue. Disaster recovery activity, consistent employment at Lime Tree Bay, COVID-related federal funding, and a surge in overnight guests are the major influences currently bolstering our fiscal strength. We have maintained at least 30 days cash on hand for most of last year. We hope to finally say, gone are the days of measuring cash on one hand in the single digits. As promised 2 years ago, we have brought stability to this government. As the fiscal strength of our government continues to improve, so will our capacity to address our long-standing financial obligations. We are intent on paying the people first. This is our #1 priority. We have put a significant dent in the backlog of income tax refunds owed to Virgin Islands taxpayers. Totaling, in this past fiscal year alone, we paid 24,718 individual checks to taxpayers, totaling almost $69 million for past due refund. This is the most income tax refunds ever paid in a single fiscal year. And we have already paid out more than $15 million in the first quarter of this current fiscal year, finishing out our payments for 2017 and paying into tax year 2018. We are making steady progress towards our administration goal of paying refunds to taxpayers in the same year that they file. The Economic Stability Act of 2011 reduced by 8% the salaries of all government employees making more than $27,000. This happened in the executive as well as the legislative branches for a 2-year period. This was in response to a budget crisis during the Great Recession. The legality of that provision of the act was challenged successfully in court by 2 labor unions, and ultimately 5,221 government workers were affected. In all, a total of $37.8 million is owed to these hardworking employees. It was perhaps a necessary measure at the time, but we are in a position now to make amends to the workers who endured this sacrifice. As we begin preparation for the executive budget for the upcoming fiscal year, it has become clear that we can begin paying down that obligation sooner than originally expected. If we are granted authorization to resume collection of our excise taxes by the courts, we will be able to retire the full obligation within 1 calendar year. The previous measures passed to address this issue would only start making payments towards the debt in 2022, and it will take 20 years at this rate to retire the debt. The people have waited long enough. As such, I am pleased to announce tonight that we will be committing to the entire payment of the 8% pay cut with the excise taxes collected this and next fiscal year. We will be forwarding the effectuating legislation this week for this body to approve of. Rest assured, Mary, that we have not forgotten the $10 million in retroactive pay for retirees 65 and older in the 2021 budget. We will make every effort possible to satisfy this budget item as well. You see, our enthusiasm is only tempered by the reality that the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic economic fallout is likely to be felt in this current fiscal year. We expect revenue collections will decrease between now and the income tax filing deadline in April. Furthermore, we expect that the impact of the increased unemployment and business closures from last year to be evident in the tax collections that we're going to have this year. Unfortunately, the recent COVID stimulus package passed by Congress does not include much direct financial support to state and local governments. We will have to maintain the fiscal health of our government through more traditional means, belt tightening, aggressive collections, and developing new sources of revenue, like cannabis. We must ensure that in the best of times, we work hard to make sure that in the worst of times, we can weather the storm. We are not only confronting the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, but we are also still recovering from hurricanes Irma and Maria. This year will see the completion of numerous hurricane recovery projects. The new modular facility, JFL North, at 1F Louis Hospital should be opening this May. The completion of that project will pave the way for the demolition and rebuild of the current hospital. This will again increase access to critical healthcare services available to Virgin Islanders in need, and it will allow for renewed access to our people and keep healthcare dollars right here in the territory where they are needed. The Department of Education completed its territory-wide educational facility master plan as scheduled on June 30th. This plan will guide the future investment of hundreds of millions of dollars of federal recovery funds earmarked for reconstructing the public school system in the Virgin Islands. Arthur Richards School alone is already approved up to $145 million, and we're still working with FEMA to get some more dollars in there. Contracts are in place for several projects in furtherance of this plan. The Gladys Abraham Elementary School will be the first school that is modernized and will become the new home of the Raphael O. Wheatley Skills Center. The building that currently houses the Skills Center is being retrofitted to accommodate the students displaced by the demolition of Building C at Charlotte Amalie High School. The contract for the demolition of Charlotte Amalie High School has now been awarded, and the work will begin this year. On St. Croix, the demolition of the hurricane-ravaged Arthur A. Richards Junior High School is well underway and will continue for the next 8 months. Demolition of the Evelyn M. Williams Elementary School, which was shuttered in 2015, is expected to be completed by December. Last year also saw the historic signing of the preliminary land swap agreement that takes the territory one step closer to realizing a K-12 school on St. John. After many years of negotiation, the National Park Service has finally agreed to provide the Virgin Islands government with a portion of park property for the construction of a new Julius Sproul School. The Department of Sports, Parks, and Recreation is also driving the completion of several recovery projects. The repairs and restoration of the Emile Griffith Ballpark, the Lionel Roberts Stadium on St. Thomas, and the Vincent Mason Coral Pool in Frederiksted are expected to be completed this year. The revitalization of St. Croix's Rudolph Schulterbrand Agricultural Complex, locally known as the Fairground, is scheduled for completion this spring. The renovations of Government House on St. Thomas are progressing well and should be completed in December. The restoration of the territory-wide tsunami alert warning system is expected to be completed this summer. Several recovery-funded road projects on St. Croix are slated for completion this year. The final 2 segments of the well-traveled Melvin Evans Highway will also be completed. The much-anticipated road repairs and drainage improvements in Gallows Bay will also begin this year. Brand new water lines have recently been installed in Frederiksted Town, and the first contract for road repairs has been awarded. The first contract for road repairs has been executed and is ready to commence. In Christiansted, a contract for the repair of the roads is also in place. The only delay is the execution of the contract is the anticipated installation of new sewer lines as part of our one dig policy. No sense to pave the road and then have to dig it back up. We intend to commence paving of Christiansted Town once all the infrastructure impacting the road repair is installed. Finally, the repairs to Carlton Road have begun. Yes, my student friend Nakai Theodore and his mother Lenice, you soon will have that smooth ride home, as promised. On the island of St. John, the repairs and renovation of the George Simmons Terrace Senior Center are now complete, and the center reopened. Likewise, the repairs and renovation of the Battery in Cruz Bay are nearly complete, and we anticipate a ribbon cutting next month. The Envision Tomorrow Homeowner Rehabilitation Program, administered by the Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority, is providing grants up to $250,000 to rehabilitate homes that were severely damaged by Hurricanes Irma and Maria. To meet demand, we have increased the regular allocation from $60 million to $150 million. Currently, 689 applicants have been deemed eligible for the program, and of those applicants, 53 have already been awarded grants. Now that the program is fully operational, we look forward to awarding more and more grants this year and getting people back into their homes. No image was more iconic of the devastation of the storms of 2017 than the images of Estate Tutu high-rise in their aftermath. Still ingrained in my mind are the missing windows of where our people used to live. Well, the demolition of the first 5 buildings at Estate Tutu is underway, and in its place, a brand new $57 million housing development has broken ground at Estate Dunu. These are just a few of the larger disaster recovery funded projects expected to be completed this year. In fiscal year 2020, we expended approximately $339 million in federal disaster recovery fund. COVID or not, in all, we are projected to expend over $621 million in the current fiscal year. This is equivalent to 75% of our general fund budget. Indeed, it is a pleasure for me to report to this body that our physical recovery from Hurricane Irma and Maria is now in full swing. Last year, the International Economic Development Council recognized the UVI Research and Technology Park as the Economic Development Organization of the Year. While our traditional economic development incentives continue to be effective, the RT Park is paving the way in attracting the types of technologically driven companies that represent the new economy that we are building. The RT Park steadily attracted and activated new technology companies, even as we grapple with the pandemic. 13 new firms were reviewed and approved by the park's board of directors in fiscal year 2020. Their efforts have resulted in a total of 29 new companies added as clients since September 2018. They have the potential to add more clients, but more clients to their pipeline, but business development in the territory is hindered by the absence of financial institutions that are willing to help develop early stage and startup businesses. To solve this problem, we will be sending to this body legislation to establish the Virgin Islands Catalyst Fund. This will provide gap financing to high economic development projects. The fund would issue loans to bridge the amount the borrower can obtain from more conventional sources and the amount needed to actually start and sustain their business. The fund would be administered by the RT Park with an initial capitalization of $5 million. Providing support to business development in the territory ensures the creation of more jobs for our people and the diversification of our economy. We are excited about the launch of Vision 2040 Planning Initiative. Vision 2040 is a community engagement planning process designed to produce a long-term economic development strategy and action plan that positions the U.S. Virgin Islands to develop a competitive business environment that is aligned with the general interests of its residents. When completed, this plan will serve as the framework that guides our economic development, not just this year, not just next year, but for the next 2 decades. This is the first time in history of the Virgin Islands that we will holistically examine the systemic roadblocks that have impeded our economic growth, with an eye towards identifying diverse, sustainable, and successful industries that can create a viable workforce. It is important that as a people, we adopt a plan that outlives the tenure of any one governor and maintains a consistent course of progress. Upon taking office, Tregenza and I, we continued the good. We stopped the wasteful. We maintained the employment of the productive and created stability of the government. We have changed to an approach that values progress and our people over petty politics. While we have made tremendous strides over the years in diversifying our economy, tourism is still our largest industry and has the greatest impact on our economy. But as you can imagine, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a negative effect on our tourism product. There have been no ship calls since March, and the ships are not anticipated to return until at least the spring, best case scenario. When they do return, we anticipate that passenger arrivals will be considerably reduced from the pre-COVID levels. While the industry recovers from the pandemic, we want to be prepared, and we continue to pursue the permits to dredge Long Bay, Crown Bay, and yes, Gallows Bay. All this permitting is on track, and we expect to get most of it done and the approvals this year. But we also believe this is the ideal time to pursue the merger of the Virgin Islands Port Authority and WICO, the West Indian Company. WICO has been severely impacted by the lack of cruise activity and has reduced staff, salaries, and hours of operation. They are quickly approaching a financial wall that is catalyzing the need for this consolidation. WICO is currently a wholly owned subsidiary of the Public Finance Authority. We are proposing that this ownership interest be transferred to the Port Authority and that WICO be given full responsibility for the management of all cruise ports in the territory. This just makes sense and would create synergy in our efforts to promote the Virgin Islands as one destination in the cruise industry. We have begun the discussions about the most efficient way to make this transfer and will be executing this long-awaited merger. The new structure will be efficient and finally allow the Virgin Islands to negotiate all three major ports in both districts under one unified vantage point. The Virgin Islands has not yet seen the return of the traditional hotel rooms that were lost during Hurricanes Irma and Maria. We had approximately 4,500 traditional rooms prior to 2017, and we currently have about 2,450. The drop-off of the leisure travel market in the midst of the pandemic has encouraged the delay of several hotel renovation projects. The continued postponement of major properties coming back online, such as Marriott, have contributed to the delay in our revenue growth. However, there are certain reasons to be optimistic about our tourism product. Hotel tax revenues were up year over year in fiscal 2020 versus fiscal year 2019 until the onset of the pandemic closures in March. We are expecting the reopening of Divi Carina Bay and Carambola Beach Resort on St. Croix this year. We are currently evaluating proposals for the redevelopment of Protestant Key, Hotel on the Key in Christiansted Harbor. The Port Authority is also in active negotiation with Global Solutions LLC to construct a 120 to 140 bedroom hotel at the Henry Rosen Airport on St. Croix. On St. Thomas, both Lime Tree Beach and Club Wyndham Elysian Beach Resort have reopened with newly renovated rooms. Construction of the 68-room boutique resort at the Preserve at Botany Bay is anticipated to start this July. This is a $25 million private sector capital investment projected to create at least 45 full-time jobs in the St. Thomas St. John district. The new Lovango Resort and Beach Club opened its doors this past December. I visited Lovango Key in December and was wowed with the beauty of the property, its sensitivity to the environment, and its commitment to employing Virgin Islanders. The Brian Roach administration, the Snyder who owns the property, and the St. John community have all worked closely together to bring this project to fruition. And I'm pleased to say the resort opened as scheduled, as promised. They now hope to complete the construction of 4 clusters of cottages and eco-tents by December 2021. And by 2024, they expect to have a 70-bedroom units in operation. These are all positive developments in revising our tourism product. We understand that the tremendous pressure that people in the hospitality and industry throughout the territory are under, our tour operators, our restaurant workers, people who work on the hotel, been suffering for the last 8 months, 10 months, even with all the aid we got. But we know that in this St. John, St. Thomas district especially, it is well known that the extra revenue created by hotels have provided many workers with secondary jobs. Jobs that send their children to school, put food on their tables, and pay the rent. We have worked tirelessly with developer after developer, financer, going back and forth with our Economic Development Authority to make sure that we are doing everything within our power to regain these room nights as soon as possible. We have worked to use our economic development tools and our influence to ensure that the Marriott and Canil and Sugar Bay all come back online as quickly as possible. Perhaps the best news tonight is that Diamond Rock, the owners of the Marriott Frenchman Reef, anticipate that construction will restart this summer. The Canil Bay Resort has resumed negotiation with the National Park Service, and now they see a clear pathway to the reconstruction of this world-famous resort. We know that the private sector is struggling with its recovery, and we will continue to bring them along as partners in our territorial recovery. On 2 occasions last year, we had to order the temporary halt on the booking of leisure guests. While this significantly helped to keep our COVID numbers low, it had the anticipated impact of quickly and dramatically reducing airlift into the territory. The incoming passenger loads significantly declined in mid-March at both airports. Daily passenger arrivals into St. Thomas dropped from nearly 2,400 passengers a day on March 14th to less than 100 passengers by the end of March. However, when the pandemic restrictions on leisure travel were relaxed, following the second shutdown in August, airlift increased exponentially. St. Thomas winter is approaching pre-hurricane levels of 2017. St. Croix capacity has long surpassed the 2017 levels. Airlines continue to bring back service with increased frequency, and additional carriers are introducing service from the mainland. We continue to receive calls and commitments for new flights. And just last week, we added another direct flight from Miami, courtesy of Frontier Airlines, and we thank them for it. The already burgeoning commercial flights are complemented by the expansion of our jet service in the territory. Last October, the Port Authority welcomed fixed-base operator Standard Aviation and their world-class 28,000 square foot hangar and aviation facility to the Sierra Leone King Airport. This was a public-private partnership between the Port Authority and Standard Aviation. This hangar is the largest freestanding building in the Caribbean and can accommodate some of the largest luxury business jets on the markets. Standard Aviation is providing concierge to the private jets, their crews, and their high-end guests. A drive past the Henry Rosen Airport will reveal the steel skeleton of yet another FBI Flight Center on St. Croix. Eagle Aviation will complete its hangar by the end of June and are already getting calls about jet services on the big land. We support the expansion of our private jet industry as we ultimately gain from the aviation fees, the purchases of fuel, and the benefit of additional overnight guests in the territory, adding to our economy. Albert Einstein said, In the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity. And in the midst of the pandemic, we seized the opportunity to revitalize our marine industry. We welcomed sailors to the safe haven of our shores when they were denied access by other countries. We managed the safety of those sailors and registered over 200 new vessels in the process. The BVI is close to marine traffic, and it has created an unprecedented amount of activity for the marine industry in the territory. The Moorings, one of the larger charter companies, recently announced its St. Thomas opening, and for the first time in recent memory, charter vessel activity has increased on St. Croix. In our efforts to see the rise of the blue economy, we forwarded our administration's mooring project permit to the legislature earlier this month. This project will add over 200 new moorings to the territory. As soon as approved, we can start a project which will take boats out of Megan's and other bays and put them into more appropriate mooring areas. Additionally, we have sent legislation to shore up our fishing and our leisure boating industry. On St. Croix, we have included funding provisions for the repair of Kings Alley Pier, has been gone now for a long time, the Gallows Bay Fisherman's Dock in front of the world-famous Panchis, and the repair of the boat ramp located in Kraus Lagoon for our fishermen in profit. Repairs at Altona Lagoon is managed by federal funds, and that too will take place this year. The $1.75 million for the Ann Abramson Pier South Tender Landing will be allocated this year from the Diageo Community Facilities. This is another pier on the side of the Frederiksted Pier. The addition of this pier will not only assist our scuba shops and dive enthusiasts, but will now provide access to our economy from charter vessels that are visiting Frederiksted with increased frequency. We are especially proud of the completion of the Lorraine Fish Market, and we will be having a ribbon cutting next month. We will continue to invest in leisure, recreation, and commercial marine infrastructure. On St. John, we have finally completed the approval for Summers End Marina project, a permit that was over 6 years old. I thank the legislature for their vote of confidence to bring financial, social, and job opportunities to Coral Bay. We recognize that this is a controversial project for some St. Johnians. But we will continue to work with all of the residents, the landowners, and the developers to ensure that this is a successful project. To demonstrate the success and appeal of our destination, the Virgin Islands has received the Destination of the Year award from Caribbean Journal. The demand for our destination is greater than ever, and as normalcy returns, the Department of Tourism is prepared to reignite its marketing campaigns to further encourage the return of leisure travel to the territory. A $2 million contract has been executed to resume both the Reconnect with Paradise, which is a territory-wide campaign, and the St. Croix-specific Vibe Like No Other campaign. Coupled with our addition of luxury travel services and marine infrastructure, this will pay dividends and tourism dollars for years to come. Without a doubt, the Virgin Islands is poised to rebound from this pandemic stronger than any of our neighbors in this region. After considerable delay, Lime Tree Bay is finally on the verge of restarting the refinery. The refinery has been idle since 2012, and work to restart it began in 2018. In October, Lime Tree received a shipment of crude oil and started commissioning equipment in preparation to restart the refining. Once the refinery starts, that guarantees the government about $7 million a year in payments. We have carefully monitored the progress of the restart. As Lime Tree Bay the EPA, DPNR, and the U.S. Department of Justice work meticulously with my office, lobbyists, the delegate in Washington and here, to make sure that we got the federal air quality standards met. As refining begins, we will make sure and keep monitoring to continue to ensure that the public health of St. Croix residents is protected from any harm. This past year saw the emergence of industrial hemp as a new industry within the agricultural sector. My administration has successfully established the Hemp Commission and implemented the industrial hemp laws that have been dormant on the books since 2016. The members of the commission worked diligently with my office to establish the parameters of the proper regulation for the proper regulation of the industry. On May 27th, the United States Department of Agriculture approved the Virgin Islands Hemp Production Program, thereby authorizing the local Department of Agriculture and Hemp Commission to issue licenses for hemp cultivation. On December 23rd, the Commission approved the first commercial hemp grower license and the first hemp seed distributor license in the Virgin Islands. Crucian Hemp Farms LLP is anticipated that the Virgin Islands, Crucian Hemp Farms LLP intends to cultivate and harvest 100 acres of CBD-rich industrial hemp. It is anticipated that the Virgin Islands hemp industry will ultimately create hundreds of jobs and the diversity of economy that provides the resilience for our people. In Estate Bethlehem, we are adding a vital component to our efforts to resuscitate our agricultural industry. The Fresh Ministries Aquaponics Center is poised to be the model for future of affordable and sustainable agriculture in the territory. Founder and CEO of Fresh Ministries, Reverend Dr. Robert Lee III, through the Desmond Tutu program to end global hunger, and a $2 million grant from the U.S. Economic Development Administration, broke ground in June of 2020. This project, in partnership with Farmers in Action, was provided a $300,000 local matching fund by the government of the Virgin Islands. It boasts over 50,000 square feet of greenhouse space and will be used as a training center to teach Virgin Islanders the business of aquaponics. Aquaponics does not require an excessive amount of energy to facilitate success. A 2,000 square foot greenhouse can generate upwards of $100,000 annually in produce and fresh fish. We are extremely excited to be part of this initiative and thank Reverend Dr. Lee and the Farmers in Action for their leadership. Food safety and food security continue to be a priority, and our administration's support of agriculture demonstrates this. We continue to support food production while putting underutilized agricultural lands to use and creating jobs while diversifying our economy. As our economic development initiatives continue to create job opportunities and our larger hurricane recovery projects begin to break ground, there is a growing need for skilled workers throughout the Virgin Islands. The jobs are there, but they will not fully benefit Virgin Islanders unless we are able to produce trained and prepared workers to meet these employment needs. We recognize the coming crisis, and we are prepared to address it. With the support of the Department of Labor, this year I will be rolling out the $10 million Skills for Today on-the-job training program. This program will train a total of 625 individuals over the next 24 months. The Skills Today, this is a program that's going to take people off our corners, off our couches, off of being idle, and into jobs that not only train them, but pay them while they do it. The Skills for Today program complements our ongoing registered apprenticeship program. Last year, the Bush administration introduced our first registered apprenticeship sponsor in the territory, Gold Coast Yachts. Today, We have registered apprenticeship sponsors in healthcare, hospitality, and the marine industry. I am thankful to the employers that participate, and I encourage all employers in the territory to partner with the Department of Labor as a registered apprentice. Workforce development creates resilient people and leads to sustainable economic growth. Our workforce development efforts will be in overdrive in 2021. My administration inherited a utility that was suffering from years of deferred maintenance and the ill effects of having its largest customer, the government of the Virgin Islands, continually delinquent on making peeps. As our sole public power provider, the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority was in imminent danger of financial collapse and would have surely taken the rest of the government with it. This was particularly tragic considering the hundreds of millions of dollars earmarked by the federal government since 2017 to be invested into WAPA's infrastructure. WAPA's entered into a $75 million contract with Wärtsilä, a global leader in smart technologies, for the engineering, procurement, and construction of 4 new generators. This also includes a battery storage system at the St. Thomas Randolph-Harley power plant. These units will be on the ground here in St. Thomas by the end of June. This project is a critical milestone in WAPA's transformation and utilizes 100% federal funds provided by HUD. It will replace the aging generators and the rented equipment that WAPA has relied on for decades. The new generators will greatly increase reliability and efficiency of the power plants and reduce maintenance and fuel costs, and yes, your power bill too. The 18 megawatt hour battery storage is an evolution in technology for WAPA, providing instantaneous standby capacity in case and when that generator trips. It also allows for a better integration of renewable energy systems onto the power grid. WAPA's $742 million of mitigation projects include backup generators and the installation of composite poles across the territory. Projects to place electrical lines underground in both districts, both St. Croix and St. John, will begin in February. Phase 1 of the restoration of the St. Thomas East End substation was completed in July 2020, and Phase 2 is expected to be completed this year. These investments will undoubtedly increase the reliability of our power system. Waterline projects in Estate Clifton Hill, Hannah's Rest, and Campo Rico will replace the corroded iron pipes currently providing water to these communities with new PVC piping. This will help solve the issues of the brown water that customers have been complaining about for years. It will also help us save some revenue by taking care of the leaks. Yes, this is progress. But regrettably, WAPA is still plagued with management inefficiencies, and way too many of them. WAPA has a tremendous opportunity to transform itself if it can only overcome its immediate challenges. Most glaring is its failures within their billing system. Despite the installation of smart meters and automated metering infrastructure several years ago, we are still faced with delayed and estimated billing and billing errors. This administration has given the authority stability and the support necessary to make changes. We are encouraged by the improvements to date, but our customers deserve better. I have called on WAPA's board to fully investigate the lingering issues and demonstrate accountability. Give ratepayers reasonable rates. Customers must feel confident that what is billed is what is owed. Maintenance of our roadways is a constant effort. On St. Thomas, critical road repairs have been completed at Fortuna Bay, Bovoni, Eastern Cemetery, Estate Peterborg, Manasseh Hill Road, and Frenchtown. Road improvements are currently underway at Crown Bay. The Estate Thomas Infrastructure Project, Phase 1, is scheduled to start, and additional paving will be done on the Bolongo Bay Drainage Infrastructure Project. This year will also see the completion, years in the making, of two long-standing road projects, the Main Street Enhancement Project and the Veterans Drive Phase 1. Both will enhance the traffic flow and aesthetics of downtown Charlotte Amalie. We already see how the expansion of the waterfront project has improved the quality of life for citizens in this district, as it is now utilized for walking, cycling, running, and even the leisure stroll. Repairs to Estate Adrian Road are in progress in St. John, as well as we have allocated $2.8 million to repair Center Line Road. Extensive road repairs on St. Croix were completed in Estate Herman Hill, Rattan, Richmond, Tipperary, Mount Union, Sally's Fancy, Scion Farm, on Hess Road, West Airport Road, and the Scenic Road. In the upcoming year, work will begin on the new Clifton Hill Road, Route 75, and over 5 miles of Mahogany Road will be paved. I also thank the members of the 33rd Legislature for making $4.5 million available from the St. Croix Capital Improvement Fund to pave roads in Estate Lorraine, Bugby Hole, Herman Hill, and St. George. We are intent on providing traffic and pavement relief to our residents in both districts. We are dedicating a brand new $20 million from the Internal Revenue Matching Fund debt service reserved to fix these problems. The traffic along the Weymouth-Reimer Highway leading into Fort Milliner has become increasingly unbearable. As such, we are dedicating $4 million to the completion of the Leonardo Nardo Trotman Drive, which should ease the traffic congestion in this area. I have consulted with the Senate President, Donna Fred Gregory, and we are also allotting another $14 million to repair roads on all three islands, and those roads will be decided by the Senate. An additional $2 million will be set aside for the revitalization of the Hull Bay boat ramp and a new parking areas so that our people will have place to put their boats when they go fishing. The balance of that money will also be dedicated to other boat ramps in Altona and other places in St. Thomas, Friedenhoy, in order to facilitate marine and fishing in St. Thomas, St. John district. These are not hasty patching jobs. These are carefully planned and properly executed road repairs as we make a concerted effort to raise the standard for paving road projects in the territory. The Virgin Islands Port Authority continues to make major investments in our port infrastructure. Not talk, not plans, but completed projects. 2021 promises to be another busy year for the Port Authority. Construction has begun on a $24 million cargo terminal and dock improvements at St. Croix, Gordon A. Finch, Molasses Pier. When the project is completed later this year, all cargo operations will move from Gallows Bay to the Molasses Pier. Gallows Bay Port will then realize its full potential as a premium passenger facility catering to mini cruise ships and luxury yachts. An $8.6 million terminal expansion and modernization at the Henry E. Rolston Airport is underway. I thank the 33rd Legislature again for supporting this project by appropriating $1.6 million in local matching funds. This project will upgrade the overall decor of the departure terminal and add modern amenities. Additionally, the National Defense Authorization Act, signed into law this past December, includes $11 million for the construction of an administrative building and $28 million for the construction of an Army aviation support facility at the Rolston Airport. This facility will support the maintenance and refueling of visiting military aircraft conducting military operations, disaster relief, and humanitarian efforts in the region. Within the next month, the Port Authority will begin work on the $26.8 million transportation center at the Sara Lee King Airport, with more than 600 parking spaces and a dedicated location for ground transportation and car rental operations. Construction also begins this year on a new U.S. Customs and Border Protection facility at the Herman V. Fredericks Marine Terminal in Red Hook. Travelers will now clear in customs in St. Thomas without first having to go to St. John. Persistence always pays off. In 2019, we visited the U.S. Department of Commerce along with Tropical Shipping and Crowley and briefed them on the importance of our cargo infrastructure. Our efforts were not in vain, as we won not one, but 2 federal grants for the same project. We were advised that we had to decline one, and the Port Authority was awarded a U.S. Department of Transportation infrastructure grant for $21.9 million to rebuild and expand cargo handling and storage infrastructure at the Crown Bay Cargo Terminal. Crown Bay serves as a major shipment port for cargo being shipped to many of the other Caribbean islands. We expect that construction to begin this year. This expansion at Crown Bay will be complemented by the redevelopment of Adelita Cancrine and adjacent properties for port expansion. Rents generated by these new properties will be reinvested in the Department of Education school maintenance program, making this a win-win for the Virgin Islands. My administration continues to clear a pathway to prosperity by making significant investments to modernize our infrastructure. For our car racing enthusiasts, we have some good news. We appropriated $500,000 last year to restore the racing surface and secured a generous donation of an additional 2.57 acres of property from the adjacent Renaissance Park to expand the facility. I want to thank Renaissance for their donation. I will submit to the Senate President a request for approval to use the Community Facilities Trust account at Diageo for an additional $675,000 to make necessary track improvements. With that appropriation, car racing will officially return to the U.S. Virgin Islands. The contract for the operation of our racetracks between the government and the VIGL operations that was ratified by the 31st legislature in 2016 has been plagued with legal problems from the very beginning. As a matter of fact, before they even passed it, they knew that it was full of problems. Firstly, the former operator on St. Croix, Traxco, had their agreement prematurely terminated and sued to reinforce their rights. The settlement of the lawsuit granted Traxco authority to run the Racino on St. Croix for 2 years after the VIGL agreement went into effect. Then the FAA questioned the use of the property at the Randall Doc James track for non-aviation purposes. We went to bat for that, and we got through. The construction permits were held up until the Port Authority could resolve that matter. After that, the coastal zone management permits were issued, and the permit for Clinton Phipps Racetrack was appealed to the Board of Land Use Appeals. Coupled with all of that going on, Southland Gaming of St. Thomas then filed a suit against the government for violating their contract for the exclusive rights to operate video lottery terminals on St. Thomas. Let it be known that I and this administration have done its best to enforce this agreement as it was negotiated in 2016. Even as it has become apparent that all the parties and the affected stakeholders are dissatisfied. I have fought at every turn to resume live horse racing to the Virgin Islands. In fact, I share the vision of the former administration in having a unified racing industry on St. Thomas as well as on St. Croix, with the world-class venues and the purses to match. We appreciate VIGL's contribution to the community thus far. But if you know me, then you know I cannot be bullied. I will not be bullied into breaching a still legally binding agreement to the benefit of one party and the detriment of Virgin Islands taxpayers to the tune of $8 million. Nor will I negotiate modifications to the agreement in the media. If the agreement is to be modified, then that is to be done at the negotiating table. And I certainly will be seeking to protect the interests of the Virgin Islands government, not any business that come here. This matter is currently in the court, and we are in mediation. And I really hope that this process resolves the disputes so that horse racing can return not just to St. Croix, but to the entire Virgin Islands. Thank you. Likewise, there we go. Likewise, we continue our efforts to reconstruct Polly Joseph Stadium. While at times I have expressed my concerns about the rising costs of this project over the last 6 years, it went from 14 million to 40 million. But I have never wavered from my commitment to see this project finished. Last year, we purchased 6 acres in Estate LaGrange to facilitate the completion of this project. Prior to FEMA's halt to the project, we had already installed the foundation. Unfortunately, from the original design, a part of the stadium is to be constructed within a floodplain. This has added some degree of complexity to this project. We anticipate that FEMA will approve the conditional letter of map revision, or CLOMAR, like you heard people referring to. But we will also, and we figure that by May, we will be starting again on the project. But we also want to let you know that we'll be coming back to the legislature for another $3 million. Right, Frankie J? To add those amenities that are needed to improve the quality of the project that we have put forward. This is the third administration, 1, 2, 3, that has grappled with this project. But trust me, this time we will get it done. We have invested in our sporting infrastructure and resurrected the law that creates the Sports Commission. That legislation, unenacted since 2014, but I have fully constituted the commission. It is tasked with not only developing a sports tourism plan for the territory, but developing a sports and a tourism plan for Polly Joseph Stadium that will make it a worthwhile investment. Providing housing opportunities for Virgin Islanders to become homeowners is ultimately what the VI Housing Finance Authority does best. After a brief hiatus, they were back at it in 2020. The authority broke ground in October on a 57 single-family home subdivision in Estate Fortuna called Wild Pineapple. With its beautiful vistas of St. Thomas, Wild Pineapple is the HFA's newest subdivision since the completion of Whispering Hills subdivision in Estate Dunu in 2015. The authority will also be constructing 16 additional homes in the Whispering Hills community and additional homes in Mount Pleasant West and Estate Bon Esperance subdivisions in St. Croix. Megan's Junction 2 will consist of 60 new low-income tax credit rental apartments that are contained in a 9-story building on St. Thomas. The $35 million development is slated to be completed by June. Meanwhile, the Virgin Islands Housing Authority has begun to implement its asset repositioning plan and revamp its stock of low-income housing. It completed phase 3 of Louis Brown Villas this past year. The phase included 90 multi-family apartments and completes the redevelopment of the beautiful Louis E. Brown community on St. Croix. This year, work is scheduled on the renovation of Walter I. M. Hodge Pavilion in Frederiksted. The project will include an exterior facelift of the buildings and overall site beautification. With a commitment to this project, 250 units will be rehabilitated. And the future of this community and its rich history are no longer in doubt. Adding to the good news is that the authority is also preparing to commence roof repairs in Michael J. Kerwin Terrace, Paul and Pearson Garden, and Contant Knolls communities in St. Thomas. We launched our Healthier Horizons initiative last year in an effort to drive changes in public health policy that would facilitate better healthcare outcomes for our people. The cornerstone of that effort was our comprehensive legislative proposal to address the needs of adults and children in the Virgin Islands who suffer from behavioral health challenges. We refer to that legislation as the Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities Act. The bill clarifies the roles of the Departments of Health, Human Services, VIPD, the Bureau of Corrections, and other agencies that work with persons with behavioral health issues. It facilitates the expansion of behavioral health services in the territory and addresses the collaboration of the public and the private partners. This important bill helps us to get a grip on not only behavioral health issues, but on the chronic homelessness and danger to the community that often results from these behavioral health issues. We sent that legislation to the 33rd Legislature on January 19, 2020. An entire year went by without the bill being afforded a hearing. Many stakeholders have contributed to this effort and support the implementation. As such, we have resubmitted this legislation. I remain hopeful that the members of the 34th Legislature are sufficiently concerned about the matter of behavioral health to finally give this bill a hearing and a proper consideration. We continue to advocate for the Senate action to integrate emergency medical services with the Virgin Islands Fire Service. Action on this legislation is critical to the health and well-being of our residents. Having fire and EMS respond from strategically positioned stations will enable our first responders to reach those in critical needs in a shorter time and may save lives. It also augments the staffing available to provide emergency medical response. The model is already successful and in effect on St. John. Year after year, we continue to witness instances that had this been done, most of those Virgin Islanders who got into trouble would have been alive today. Governor Juan Luis signed Executive Order 233 in 1979, providing for the licensure of emergency medical technicians in the Virgin Islands by the Department of Health. To this very day, 41 years later, the executive order remains the sole legal authority of emergency medical services in the Virgin Islands. My office, the Department of Health, and the Division of Fire Services have spent considerable time leading a multi-agency effort to plan and coordinate fire EMS integration. We have thought through the budgetary concerns, operational concerns, collective bargaining impacts, and legal framework necessary to do this successfully. That coordination is embodied in the bills we have drafted that both effectuate the merger and create a system to regulate the conduct of emergency medical services. In the absence of legislative action on those bills, I will be issuing an executive order to amend Executive Order 233/1979 and create the new integrated Virgin Islands Fire and Emergency Medical Services. Too many people have died. The time has come to make the change. We began our efforts to modernize the telemedicine provisions in the Virgin Islands Code prior to COVID-19 outbreak last year. Since then, the benefit of telemedicine has become evident. We have drafted the Telehealth Act, establishing licensing, rules, standards of practice for telehealth providers, and authorizing telehealth providers to use telehealth to treat patients. This provides Virgin Islanders with increased access to healthcare options from remote providers. We will be submitting that legislation for consideration by this body. The Association's health plan is a new path for hardworking Virgin Islanders to access healthcare coverage by giving choice and competition in the territory and strengthening the negotiating power with providers from larger risk pools. This plan allows small businesses to band together to purchase the types of coverage available to large employers. And still, these will be less expensive and be better tailored to the needs of that small business. Business owners without any employees can join the plan and get health care insurance for them and their family. The Office of the Governor has been working to vet health insurance carriers to provide coverage for the Association's health plan members. 5 organizations have already opted in as members: the St. Thomas, St. John, and the St. Croix Chambers of Commerce, the USVI Hotel and Tourism Association, and the VI Bar and the VI Realtors Association. These are just 4 of the 11 measures that we are championing as part of Healthier Horizon initiative. For while we can have paid people, it's no good if they're not healthy people and they're enjoying their livelihoods here in the Virgin Islands. The Virgin Islands Police Department continues to improve its performance in addressing violent crime. Last year, FIPD arrested 21 homicide suspects. That is progress when compared to prior years. Sadly, many homicide suspects are themselves murdered before they can be brought to justice, leaving friends and families of the victims with no closure. Through traffic stops and other initiatives, we took 175 illegal guns off the streets last year. More importantly, those stops flagged numerous individuals who were engaged in the irresponsible act of purchasing and carrying guns that were unregistered. Also, we are pleased to say that VIPD demonstrated its resolve by arresting for the first time on a New Year's Eve night 8 individuals and confiscating 17 unlicensed firearms on New Year's Eve. Never before happened in the Virgin Islands. We have zero tolerance for the celebratory gunfire that unnerves and endangers us, our residents, every year on that day. We continue to employ technology to augment our limited human resources. This past year, we restored the ShotSpotter gunshot detection system, and the first phase of our public surveillance camera system will be operational this summer. Additionally, our federal partners have also provided resources to assist our investigators in ballistic and firearms detection, working hand in glove, step by step, with our federal partners to make sure that we're making arrests and taking violent criminals off the street. We are stepping up our efforts to intercept firearms that are being illegally smuggled through our ports of entry, mainly our airports. To achieve this, we were forging partnerships with our airline partners, and solidifying coordination among relevant enforcement agencies. We look forward to submitting legislation to complement our efforts. The proposed legislation seeks to clarify licensing requirements and declaration processes for transporting firearms, ammunition, and accessories into the territory. Further, we will seek to require 24 hours notice of intent to import firearms into the territory to facilitate VIPD search and declaration and arrest these people at the airport. The Virgin Islands Police Department is chronically understaffed. Every single governor has said that. We are simply unable to recruit and train officers fast enough to replace those who are leaving the force. However, we have developed strategies to augment VIPD's law enforcement presence while we pursue more long-term recruiting strategies. Last year saw the active return of the police auxiliary. The auxiliary has already onboarded its first 6 officers and has 20 more on the way. Auxiliary officers serve as police officers doing small policing around the territory. This year we are introducing the Community Service Officer Program. This program will give individuals interested in law enforcement careers and opportunity to serve in the entry-level patrolling positions without first going through the peace officer training regimen. We're using these people for COVID management and parking tickets and general traffic control. The Virgin Islands government is hiring. We are hiring police officers, police auxiliary, and community service officers. Additionally, we will soon implement a mandate requiring peace officers throughout the executive branch to serve at least 16 regular hours non-overtime per month on patrol with VIPD. This will drastically increase VIPD's presence, manpower, and policing capabilities. Our police officers need support, and we are working hard to get them the resources and manpower they need. But as we work to increase our law enforcement capacity, we recognize that the causes of violent crime are rooted in socioeconomic challenges confronting our community. As such, purely law enforcement approach to violent crime is reactionary and ultimately ineffective. We know it is a very small minority of individuals who drive the majority of violent crime activity in our territory. Therefore, we must tackle this problem with a targeted, community-based approach that provides strategically resources and the support for our at-risk neighborhoods and our at-risk individuals. The 33rd legislature took up the consideration of the creation of an Office of Gun Violence Prevention and passed the measure during their final session. I signed this legislation last week, and it is now law. This office will lead a community-based partnership between law enforcement, social service providers, community leaders, the clergy, and others in an effort to interrupt violence before it leads to bloodshed on our streets. I want to say a special thank you to former Senator, unfortunately, Myron Jackson, for really pushing and make sure that we got this measure before he left offices. We have aggressively been pursuing solutions to violent crime in our community. But as Virgin Islanders, we must also be willing to hold each other accountable. This past year saw increased use of Crime Stoppers, which led to apprehending criminals and solving crimes. If you see something, say something. It's more than a catchy slogan, it's a call to action. It begins with you simply calling 911 to report gunshots fired in your location. You are a critical resource to combating criminal activity in our community. We must stop accepting and embracing the criminal element living amongst us. We must let them know that their chosen lifestyle is destructive to the culture and the values that Virgin Islanders pride themselves on, and it will not be tolerated. We must commit to making life as uncomfortable for them as they make it for us. Those residents harboring, enabling, and benefiting from persons participating in illicit activities will also be sought out and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. As leaders in the community, Senators, I urge you to join me in making that as clear as possible to our constituents at every opportunity you are given to. We have to stand as one community against crime. We must also remember that not all criminals carry guns and create mayhem in public spaces. Some criminals conduct their business very quietly by trafficking drugs, embezzling money, defrauding government systems, or receiving kickbacks on government contracts. Under the Brian Roach administration, all crime, especially public corruption, is put on notice. We only received funding for the Medicaid Fraud Prevention Unit last year, and already we are uncovering perpetrators and making arrests. This year you will see even more arrests as we start to conclude our investigations that have started. That is why I lobbied so strong for the legislature to fund the white-collar crime unit. Corruption in any form erodes the trust of the people and their faith in us as public servants. Last year, the government employees retirement system sold off $120 million in assets. There is now less than $455 million remaining in the portfolio. This year, we will likely sell off even more. The system is in an accelerating death spiral. And for every day that goes by without taking definitive action to reverse the failing of the government retirement system, the decisions that ultimately need to be made become more painful and more costly. We all know this. We should also know that if the pension system fails, it will affect far more than just the annuities of the retirees. The entire Virgin Islands economy will suffer the loss of over $200 million annually. Last year, I went to the legislature 3 times in an effort to reduce our debt and contribute over $400 million in cash to our ailing retirement system. The refinancing of our debt would have given us the opportunity to take a significant step towards solving this problem. The original 2 measures that would have allowed us to realign our debt for more reasonable payments in the first 10 years. Yes, we would have to repay more in the last 10 years. But realize that there is no way out of this problem that is not a painful one. We have been out of the bond market for over 10 years. And the offering of the previous administration, just 4 years ago, failed to get any traction. Although we were hamstrung by the deadlines of the first authorization, which this body gave us, it is important to note that we were securing a bond that was actually already selling at 25% cheaper interest rate, a lower interest rate than the last time we went to the bond market and had a decent rating. So we were able to get, even though we hadn't had a decent bond rating in 12 years, we were still able to command the interest rate that was 25 to 30% lower than what we had then. This is a huge accomplishment, not for me, for the Virgin Islands. The adage try, and try again is a mainstay of the Brian Roach administration. And we will not stop trying to identify financially prudent initiatives if it is of the benefit to the people of the Virgin Islands. While it may give some comfort, some small comfort, to dismiss the warnings of the 42% cut that the GRS's board makes and call it scare tactics and question, what's the rush? Every day that we wait it cost the GRS $329,000. Do the math. 120 million divided by 365 days. $329,000 every day as the system moves steadily towards insolvency. The GRS Board of Trustees has made it clear. They do not have the authority to avert this reality, nor do I. Only this legislative body can grant us the necessary authorization to take the actions necessary to infuse cash in the system and restructure its benefits packages for the long term. Only this body. It is why I sent for consideration by the body 3 times, each time making significant amendments to satisfy the concerns of the Senate. Our neighbors in Puerto Rico were able to refinance their bonds, while the same opportunity, sadly, was not afforded to Virgin Islanders. We have some additional solutions we will present to the Senate this year, including the resubmittal of the cannabis legislation. But none of these will be as straightforward or as immediate as the refunding of the Internal Revenue Matching Fund bonds. When we failed to act, we lost $285 million in savings, the opportunity to access another $155 million in cash currently held in reserve at the request of our investors, the chance to re-access the credit market and to get positive attention of the larger rating agencies. I stand patient, willing to work with the legislature to come up with a solution to these problems. But let's make sure that we work together because the people are counting on us. What a year. What a tribulation. Thank God 2020 is over. Over the last year, we have seen a global pandemic, national instability, riots in our city because Black lives, they do matter. Civil unrest as radicals attempted to kidnap governors and even storm the Capitol in D.C. Economies shut down and hospitals overrun. Death tolls over 4,000 Americans dying in a single day from coronavirus. Volcanoes in the Caribbean, devastating hurricanes in the southern United States, and the coronavirus raging on. Last year, the cabinet and I started the year in prayer on the day preceding the State of the Territory. As we did this year, we have been truly blessed in the face of life-changing adversity to be in quarantine, surrounded by awesome people, beautiful weather, and the gentle and iridescent Caribbean Sea. Thank you so much to each of my cabinet members and all the staff members in the Office of Governor and Lieutenant Governor for your valiant efforts in meeting the many challenges of 2020. All of our fears about our coffers running out, payless paydays, government layoffs, 4-day work weeks were dismissed as we saw this administration, conservative money management techniques, diligent tax collection, and the support of you, the people, pay off, working together. As many in this great nation wonder and ponder on how they will make it through this year, 2021. In the Virgin Islands, we have a real plan, and we are confident that we can execute on it. With the help of this body and the support of our people, we will continue to be successful because we lead the Caribbean and the nation in pandemic management, and we will become leaders in other rights and other endeavors. It is contrary in our culture to acknowledge that we are indeed doing well. Ask any Virgin Islander, how are you doing today, man? You are likely to hear, so, hanging on, idea. Not as good as you. Así, ni bien, ni mal. But the reality is, we must start to acknowledge that in most instances, not in all instances, but in most instances, we are better off than most, that our cup is half full as often as it is half empty. We must recognize that today is a great day, and tomorrow promises to be even better. We must not hesitate to acknowledge that we are a blessed people with a long legacy of overcoming challenges, great challenges, by God's mercy, His grace, and our resilience. During the January 20th inauguration of Biden-Harris, we watched with great pride National Youth Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman recite her poem, "The Hill We Climb." But her words, they not only ring true in D.C., you hear everybody posting them on Facebook and sending them to one another, they have to ring true here at home. There is always light, if only we are brave enough to see it. If only we are brave enough to be it. We are resilient, and our territory is resurgent, succeeding against the odds and preparing for the next 20 years of progress. God bless you, and God bless the Virgin Islands. Thank you.
Governor, on behalf of the members of the 34th Legislature, we thank you for delivering your third State of the Territory address. And of course, we look forward to working with you on behalf of the people of the United States Virgin Islands. Thank you.
Well, Ali, that was a very long and challenging, so to speak, to listen to, but it was very good.
Very good, yeah. It was strong, it was very thorough.
I particularly liked it. I mean, he started off with about first 8 or 9 pages with respect to COVID-19, and it was very important that he gave a historical, you were talking about giving a historical background. We know COVID-19 still is here today, but how did we get here?
Right.
You know, that was important. How did we get here?
Yeah, it was very important. It was good to go back and hear just the whole journey, because as we navigate this COVID pandemic, there's so much that we kind of forget a little bit, because we have to stay in the now and we have to stay in like what we presently need to focus on. But to hear the governor talk about when we went into that no mask, no service, and how he was one of 5 governors at the time that instituted that, and then also sharing 24 deaths for the mortality rate of COVID, and you know, certainly condolences to the families affected, but the estimated mortality rate at the time when it all began, 200 deaths. Him bringing us back to that, you know, and how we have done the best that we can to keep our people safe.
Yes.
You know,
Well, let's just say he did, because he's the leader of the territory. But everyone that was associated with doing everything that they were supposed to do, like the Department of Health, who I will always commend, of course, they're part of the administration, did a tremendous job in saving so many lives and teaching us what to do. The press briefings on a daily basis at first. They came off, you know, like a once a week. That was very important also to get us, you know, to the point where we began to listen. Now, there are some few instances where we have a few individuals who, or folks who still want to test that, you know, they're going to still have mass gatherings and whatnot, and that's something that we need to work on. But as far as a job that the Virgin Islands government has done with respect to COVID-19, I will have to commend this administration for a job well done. I wouldn't want to go through it again, but we're still not out of the waters yet.
Definitely not, and you know, and it's such a balance. You know, I mean, you want to we have to keep people safe. The governor said, that is the priority, but we also have to do what we can to keep the economic well-being of our territory healthy as well. So I thought the governor speaking of tourism, the economy, that was also very thorough and a lot of great information.
Great information. We have Attorney Siobhan Thomas in St. Croix who's going to be joining us. I'm not sure if she's quite ready to join us yet, but I also want to say that it's been a pleasure right now. So let's take it over to Siobhan Thomas. Siobhan, how you doing?
Everyone doing this evening?
We're so happy to have you. It brings a third party in here so we can have a great discussion. So what do you think about the State of the Territory address delivered by the Honorable Albert Bryan Jr., Governor of Virgin Islands?
Well, first of all, as you all stated, it was thorough. It really did take us on a journey of this administration, our journey through COVID, our journey for the year 2020, which at times was a rough one. But of course, it ended with some optimism and a plan for where we're going to be going into the future. I think the place that we are right now is that there are a lot of dominoes and pieces being put into place. And for the year 2021, we're going to be seeing a lot of projects and things completed, which will be great.
He did mention a lot of construction projects that you just mentioned. A lot of construction projects that's going to, supposed to happen by the end of the year. So it's going to be an interesting State of the Territory address in 2022 to see if all these projects that he mentioned they come to fruition. But I want to introduce you to, I'm sure you know, Ali Vanek. Ali?
Yes, hi, Attorney Thomas. It's so great to have you here for our live coverage of the Governor's State of the Territory address. I'm interested in what were your thoughts on the governor sharing with the economy and the plan moving forward?
Well, for me, with any economy, it is always about your human resources and the persons that you have available to do the jobs. So for me, I was really excited to hear about the $10 million for our Skills for Today youth program. I'm always excited to hear about programs for our youth and workforce development. I was excited to hear that the Department of Labor is going to be moving forward in really developing our workforce. I was excited to hear about all of the dollars for our construction projects, because again, that's more jobs. Of course, for healthcare, I'm always excited that JFL will be moving forward with the completion of JFL North. I know I'm biased, but I'm excited about that. And tourism. Tourism has been a bit difficult to manage because, of course, you have COVID, but at the same time, you do need those dollars in the economy. So I think we struck a good balance. I think our economy is going to really be moving forward, especially with all of the new initiatives that happened this year.
Absolutely, and thank you very much, Attorney Thomas. We are now going to switch gears to Ashley, who is standing by with Governor Albert Bryan Jr. Ashley.
Good evening, Governor. Would like to thank you for joining us after your 2021 State of the Territory address to the public. Well, most definitely. We had the opportunity to listen to you, to hear you today, to read your speech. You laid out your, first and foremost, you laid out your plans of things that you've accomplished, or mission accomplished, and things that you want to see moving forward. So there are some questions that we want to ask, getting to the stuff that you talked about in your speech that our listening audience will like to hear about. And in the first question, Governor, in 2020, you laid out a plan to address GRS. Notably, the need for the passage of your amendment to the Medical Cannabis Patient Care Act, and the passage of then later on the passage of the Matching Securitization Bill. Both of those bills had trouble getting out of the legislature. Your administration's Virgin Islands Behavioral Health Development Disability Act didn't even get a hearing in the 33rd legislature. So, what are some of the things that you're going to do differently, working with this legislature, the 34th legislature, that you think will be able to create some more synergy to be able to get some more of your initiatives, some more of your policies passed to be able to aid the people of the Virgin Islands?
One of the lessons that I learned last year is there's a lesson of politics, really. You know, we produce good legislation that makes sense. And the last few years, we relied on just common sense to prevail and the good nature to prevail. However, we have found that there are a lot of concerns and questions around a lot of legislation. And because it's a 2-year cycle, senators are a lot less likely to stick their neck out as opposed to a governor. But we've developed some relationships along the way. We're making some new relationships, trying to help get some of this legislation passed. But I also have to be fair and say that the legislature was hamstrung by COVID as well too. They were out of at least 4 or 5 months before they could really start to have sessions and get it again. So that delayed the progress as well. So when you look back at the record of the legislature and how many bills they got passed, they've submitted over 400 bills. You could see it wasn't something I think was personal about the administration. They were just trying to get their own work done.
Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate that. Another question that we got has to do. In your address today, you spoke about the return of the K to 3 special education, career, technical education students back to face-to-face classroom instruction. A lot of parents are asking, will vaccinations be a requirement for the teachers and students who will attend? And will regular students eventually be allowed back into the school campuses for the school year for in-person instruction? And if so, will vaccinations be a requirement for those who participate?
You know, I've stayed away from mandatory vaccines for our people. I understand that there's a lot of concern around the vaccine. I've been vaccinated. I've had both shots now, and I am in good health and moving forward. But everybody doesn't want to have that right. So we'll be looking at that closely to see what the determination is. But at the end of the day, you know, we need to get at least to 85% in order to create that safety barrier. You know, children are not that affected by COVID. I mean, they've been pretty resilient through this pandemic. The problem is that, you know, they're cute and the grandmothers want to hug them, and the transmission of disease to that elder population is where we're most vulnerable. That's why we've done the things like try to keep our elder care centers closed, encourage people with compromised immune system to stay away from people. So as we see school open, I don't want to see any mandatory requirements being put on our people for this vaccine, but we'll take a look at it. We're just trying to get our students back in school because, you know, we were not performing well before the COVID-19 pandemic.
So is there a timeline the administration has on getting to that 80% threshold? Is there a target goal, a target date?
You know, we've been really pushing the Biden administration and our FEMA partners to give us as many vaccines. So I didn't announce it tonight, but in the next 100 days, in conjunction with our president, we're really going to be trying to ramp up how many people. I expect to see it drop off at about 40% of our population. Okay. I think that much is willing to take it. But we'll keep pushing and keep, and I love the publicizing when we have famous people, you know, Virgin Islands, popular people, taking the vaccine and encouraging people to take it. So hopefully we'll get to that 60 or 70%. We could vaccinate the entire island if we really push it by March.
Oh, March of this year,
yes.
2021.
If people are willing to get the vaccine, we're going to keep pushing, and the administration is working with us to get that in there. So he's trying to do, I think, 100 million in 100 days. Okay. We're an excellent pilot program to show how you could vaccinate 100,000 people in our community quickly. You know, if we can get to 80, we'll be good.
Oh, I mean, so that's good to know. I didn't necessarily think that March would have been a reasonable date to get even to 50%. so
end of March.
So that's good. Great question. So it's taken on the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So you also mentioned in your State of the Territory address that the Department of Tourism they will be returning back to their ad campaigns that they were running, the no vibes like St. Croix and St. Croix, and the campaign that they were running generally for the Virgin Islands.
Correct.
My question to you is this: has the administration, has your tourism commissioner, tourism department talked about a shift in strategy, like we saw after the Great Recession in 2008, or like we saw, you know, after the hurricanes, especially with the remote workers?
Well, I love that. If you can work from anywhere, why not work from here?
Yes.
So a couple of things we were doing before, we have shifted our attention a lot more to the African American market. And if you notice now, you will see a lot more, especially on St. Croix, a lot more African American tourists than you normally see visiting the Virgin Islands. The other thing I think that's working for us right now is if you travel to a foreign destination, you need a COVID test to get in to the U.S. In the Caribbean, COVID tests are not as prevalent as they are in Puerto Rico and in the Virgin Islands. So we're going to pick up a whole lot of traffic that would have otherwise gone to Jamaica, Trinidad, Aruba, St. Martin because of that requirement. And then strategically positioning ourselves now because we need to do more overnight guests. But think about this. We're not doing any marketing now. And you look and see what kind of tourism response we have. You know, we have to make sure we measure our tourism dollars with the amount of capacity we have in order to entertain people, because we've been doing well with our Airbnb, but everything has its limits. And that Airbnb market, we also have to look at it because it's driving rents, which our local people need to live someplace too. So that's why we're beefing up on this housing. So progress is good, but it comes with a lot of problems: crime, overcrowding, healthcare problems, infrastructure overloads. And we're looking at those. That's what that 2020, the 2040 plan is about too, looking at how all of this capital influx is going to impact and affect the way we live as Virgin Islanders.
And so thank you so much. And just a quick follow-up. So one of the things that you just you spoke about is that the Airbnb capacity we see is coming up. We're not doing any advertising right now.
Right.
Our airlifts are I think 94% back to where they were pre COVID on St. Thomas.
Over in St. Croix.
It's over where it was COVID before COVID-19 at St. Croix. Is there? And a lot of it has to do. A lot of other borders, especially in the Caribbean, are closed.
Right.
Even in the marine industry, because our neighbors are closed. The borders are closed. Is there anything that you guys are taking without doing any advertising? You're learning so that when a competition does open back up, that we're able to maintain our somewhat of an advantage here.
I hope everybody else is learning it. I mean, I look at the way that we have seized on the opportunity to take advantage of this marine business, take advantage of business that would otherwise go other places because we have testing, locked down our COVID and managed it well. I hope that my counterparts in the legislative branch are really paying attention to seizing the moment. You got to move when you have the opportunity. Right now we have the 200 moorings project in the legislature. We need to get that done within the next 90 days would be great. The other thing that you're seeing is when you move 75% of the people that vacation to the BVI do not stay in hotels, they stay in boats. So adding that boat component now gives us more rooms, so to speak. So we're pushing economic development, trying to get the Marriott on, trying to get Caneel Bay, Sugar Bay, Wyndham, DV, get them all up so we can have this, because people want to come to the Virgin Islands. It's going to be that way for a while.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking your time out, especially after you spoke for about 2 hours, taking the time and giving the Business of Politics their first interview post your State of the Territory address. I want to wish you a good evening and a successful 2021. As your administration does well, we all do well.
We all do well.
So I look forward to seeing what you're going to be able to accomplish. Hopefully, it's not like your 2020. State of the Territory, where 2 months later we had a pandemic, which kind of just
don't say pandemic, but
shifted everything. So hopefully we look forward to seeing you implement and working with the legislature to implement a lot of the things that you discussed here tonight.
It's going to be good. Trust me, we got it going on. One time in the Virgin Islands. This year is going to be a great year. I look forward to speaking to you as well. Love you. Take care.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Clear.
Yes. So next we want to thank you guys for going on. We're honored to have the Lieutenant Governor with us, as he's going to give some post State of the Territory remarks. So, Lieutenant Governor Churgenza Roach, we welcome you to Business of Politics.
Thank you.
We want to thank you for taking your time out this evening to join us.
Absolutely.
We appreciate that.
It's good to be here.
So we interviewed the governor. We were able to kind of ask some questions about what he's been doing and about the State of the Territory. Your office, we want to talk a little bit about what you do and what you've been doing. And, you know, the governor talked about it in his State of the Territory address. Your office and property taxes, you guys have been breaking records in your collections and even going back and delinquent property taxes. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? What have you done differently from your predecessors? Who do you attribute that to? And what do we expect to see more of that in the future?
Well, first I would say that in seeing the year 2020, as difficult a year as it was, as it has been, I never wish time away because we don't get it back. And so I felt grateful for this time because in every difficulty, it's an opportunity to rise to a challenge. And I think in my employees, who I always want to express my appreciation for, it gave us a time to reevaluate, to think about how we do things, to think about how we can improve, and to think about how we serve our people, even in a time when we cannot connect to them physically in the way that we have. And so I think it forced us to improve in so many different ways. We acknowledge the loss of life, we acknowledge the way that it has changed, the way we interact, the way our children had to go to school in terms of not benefiting from the social development that contact with their peers provides, but at the same time, it gave us an opportunity to be better. One of the things we accomplished this year was to put all of our offices, to relocate several of them and to have them pretty much in a kind of one-stop service location now at Niski Center. And we've gotten a lot of comments from the public about their abilities to move through those divisions pretty much seamlessly. We have also added new modules to our computer systems to allow for payment, which is critical to the government, 24/7. And we encouraged, when we knew the stimulus was coming, we encouraged our taxpayers to use the money, particularly if you were working for the government and there was no interruption in your pay, to use this money to pay your property taxes. And between that and just the efforts of our employees, we really want to thank the people of the Virgin Islands, because when we announced that it was a great year for us in terms of collections, we have to also acknowledge that we owe a lot to the people who recognized that because we were facing so many challenges with the loss of visitors, the closing of businesses, etc., that they acted to keep our government afloat. And we are very grateful for that kind of support. Throughout the pandemic, I think one of the benefits was to redefine the way that we see essential employees for the government of the Virgin Islands. And in some cases, in the office of the Lieutenant Governor, we had employees who we allowed to work from home. Some because of their seniority and their susceptibility to the virus. And before much time had passed, we had those employees asking to come back to work. And we recognize that the routine of coming to work, the routine of actually producing, because people put a lot of value in being productive. And we were able to really see that in the staff. And I'm really grateful for that. And I continue to applaud the employees. In the year to come, we are going to be doing a lot with our infrastructure. We have gotten monies approved for the renovations to our administrative offices in St. Thomas, and we're going to be rebuilding the Cyan Farm Great House, which suffered damage in the 2017 hurricanes. And we are also going to be thinking about relocating. We moved the administrative office of the Lieutenant Governor from Christiansted to Frederiksted. And that was an effort to contribute to make the vitality of Frederiksted, which is a beautiful town. And we're in the process of doing some renovations to the building, some upkeep to the building. and we want to do some more moves in terms of the offices on St. Croix. But we'll see how that goes.
Well,
in the months to
I
come.
mean, that was a great answer. So basically, you consolidate your office to kind of create that one-stop shop to make it more efficient. You communicated with, you automated some of your processes to allow for ease of payment, so the government could receive money at any time. It could, you know, wake up at midnight and want to pay my bill, and I could do it online. And then your people, your communication, whether it's communicating to the greater public,
Absolutely.
and they participated in paying their bills, and then your staff. Making it so that they could be as efficient as possible. So you've been, like I said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So that shows that you and your team deserve a lot of credit for that. I do have another question for you.
Sure.
As the head of the banking and insurance in the Virgin Islands, there are tons of small business owners, and a lot of times when I run into them, one of the issues that they have is the access or availability of some banking products that if they were in the States, that they would be able to access, that can help them run their business more efficiently, that aren't available here in the Virgin Islands. You know, whether it's like through PayPal or Square or those things. Is that something that your office is aware of? And if it is it something in your office that you guys are looking at, and something that you are maybe in the future you guys will address and be able to work with some of these companies or ease some of our regulations here, or in our framework, where Virgin Islanders, especially small business owners, will be able to have access to some of those banking products that right now they're shut of.
Okay. Well, you may know, I think most people know, that unlike many lieutenant governors in the country, the lieutenant governor in the Virgin Islands actually has a very specific statutory responsibility. So we're not like ladies in waiting to the governor.
Nope.
We have very specific responsibilities here to discharge, and two of those are the Commissioner of Banking and the Commissioner of Insurance. And so to go back a second is to simply say that we also are very grateful that for the first time the National Association of Insurance Commissioners accredited our insurance and banking division, and that's a big deal. That will be for 5 years, and we will be renewed at the end. We'll go through a process of renewal beginning into 3 years before the end of that 5-year term.
Your second term.
Right. Well, okay. You catch me off guard a little bit. And so we're always thinking about it, and in fact we expect to be announcing this year additional insurance products in the territory.
Okay.
Every year we do what's called the State of the Banks. And in that process, we bring in each bank and we go through their portfolio, we challenge them about issues such as what you raise, etc. And so I say that to say that one of the things that I always want to encourage people to do is to remember that we are an advocacy organization as well as we are service and as well as we are regulatory. So we encourage consumers to always let us know what challenges they're having and what difficulties they're having so that we bring them to the banks directly. You know, we had some issues we just welcomed the new bank into the territory.
Yes.
And we had some challenges as they converted their systems to the previous bank. And we're always looking to improve the adequacy of banking resources, particularly with the emphasis on ensuring community reinvestment by our banks, but we need to grow that sector. It's something that we need to do. We also bring in the Government Development Bank, and we believe that that bank should be utilized more to bridge some of those issues.
Bridge finance, kind of what the governor spoke about today, that they're looking. So that's the entity he's going to look to use to meet. Lieutenant Governor, I thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you taking your time out to join us here at Business of Politics. Okay. I will let you get back to your evening. I'm sure that you may be a little tired.
It's been a long day.
It's been a very long day for you, I'm sure. Good. So I want to thank you for joining us today, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, and the best to you.
All right,
God
thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we're going to have a newcomer, now on the majority, Senator Samuel Carrion, someone I know very well. We're happy and honored that you could join us. This is your first State of the Territory address as a senator, right? So what were your thoughts to the governor's speech tonight? What are some of the things that stood out to you in what he said?
Well, good night to you,
Good night.
Ashley, and good night to the viewing and listening audience. I think the speech tonight was very hopeful. I think the governor did a good job in presenting. He mentioned a lot about the process and the whole recovery process that had to do with the COVID and how the administration has worked to deal with the COVID crisis in the territory. I also believe that there is still much work to be done. We have now the vaccine, so I would like to see a more aggressive plan in the distribution of the vaccine. I'm also concerned for our elderly population and how are they going to get the vaccine. But I was hopeful also to hear some of the recovery projects that have initiated and that hopefully will be completed this year. And some on St. Croix and some on St. Thomas. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of the things that he mentioned also executed.
So as a freshman senator, you have hit the ground running. You're appointed a chairman of Youth Parks and Recreation.
Yeah,
I
Youth
believe
Sports Park and
Youth Sports
Recreation.
Park.
That's correct.
Yes, Youth Sports Park Recreation. And then with the governor in his speech, he talked about a lot of parks that are being renovated that are currently in the process or about to start. He talked about the Vincent Mason Pool on St. Croix. He also talked about some projects over here on St. Thomas. So what are you, as the chair of your committee, what are some things that you can see that yourself working with this administration to help see those projects through? What are some things that you
I
plan
was
to do?
pleased to hear him mention, like you said, the Mason Pool project. But also, I was also pleased to hear also the money that's going to be appropriated for the racing also in St. Croix, drag racing commission, which is approximately, I think, around $675,000. And the administration previously had approved, or through the Senate had approved about 500,000. So, you know, that's great for the territory. You know, our young people need activity. Even though we're in COVID, we need to find ways to stimulate our young people in the sports industry and in the area of tourism. So I was also glad to hear him speak also about the Frederickstead Stadium and how the money has been, the properties, additional properties have been, or land has been acquired for the stadium, and he's coming back to the Senate. So I'm looking forward to working with him when they send back to the Senate to be able to appropriate, I think, around $3 million for the Frederickstead project, for Frederickstead Stadium, which is very important for me and for the people of St. Croix. So I'm open to work with this administration to benefit the people of the territory.
Well, thank you. And then another question. So earlier, you sent out, maybe last week, you sent out a press release that talked about some of the bills that you have already submitted to legal counsel. Like I said, you hit the ground running. And in that press release, you talked about you have legislation to address GRS. I know it's probably still in the drafting stages, but can you give the public an overview as to what that entails? And because I know this is a big concern to the population, it's something that I know once people saw it, I was like, okay, what is that about? We want to know more about that.
Well, we'll be sharing more with the community about it. One of the things that we decided also to do is to work closely with our colleagues, because I believe they also, after having discussion, they also have different initiatives, so that we can come together, really form something that is comprehensive and that will really bring relief to the GRS. Tonight, we heard the governor speak on some of those issues. I know some of the colleagues also, they have some other points they would like to also implement and would like to see that whole restructuring. Because what we need in GRS is we need it to be restructured completely, but also it's about funding it properly. So I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues and also sharing with the people what some of those initiatives are.
So is there anything that you would like to share today with the people? Anything that your office has coming up? Any initiative that or legislation that may make it to your committee floor or another committee's floor within the next month?
Well, the next month we'll be having one of the hearings in the committee where we'll be getting a status report of what's the status with different parks, and especially with the recovery of most of our parks, and hearing also from the commissioner what plans they have for this year. I'm looking forward working closely with Commissioner White and this administration to really revamp again the areas of the sports, to revamp again our parks, and to really get our whole community active and involved in areas of sports. And I'm also looking for initiatives in the area of sports tourism also.
Okay, anything particular in regards to sports tourism that you're looking at?
Well, specifically, since one of the things that we're seeing moving forward is we spoke about the drag racing, and we know that we have a great number of people in our community that love racing. And there's already conversations of people from St. Thomas coming over, other Caribbean islands. So that in itself could stimulate the economy because we're talking about lodging, people coming over with their families. So those are the kind of things that we need to push forward that also would impact our economy and create some recreation within our community.
And last question, horse racing, in the
Horse
Virgin Islands.
racing.
I know this is something that falls under your committee. We know it's something that Virgin Islanders are very passionate about. And we know that the dispute that's been ongoing in the news between VIGL, our Southland Gaming, and our government intertwined and mixed into it. There are definitely lots of people that would like to know, now that you're elected, now that you're a senator, you're the chair of this committee, is there going to be any legislation that you're going to be pushing to help to amend this, or are you going to be sitting down with the parties to help to solve this impasse? Are you going to sit down with the governor? Should we expect racing in 2021? Horse racing in 2021?
Yeah, we've been listening to the association and listening to all the parties. We heard the governor this evening talk about how he is not going to be bullied, but how he is willing to work closely with a VIGL and try to, make it possible for our community. So I'm looking forward to hear what's going to happen. Right now it's in litigation, so it's a civil matter, the mediation, so we can't really speak much. We don't know what the outcome is going to be, but our committee stands ready to be able to assist in any way possible.
So basically, we don't know any more than we knew yesterday. We still kind of in a quagmire. Now, is there anything else? So as far as recreation related or parks related, is there anything else that the governor didn't mention that your office is looking at, and you may be looking at legislation to address that, or there's something that you may bring up in your committee hearings that you would like to know more about in regards to the committee that you'll be chairing?
Well, one of the things that I want to focus on really, and it's the recovery process with our parks. So I'm looking forward to hear what's the status, where we are, what's the hold up, and see what way we can assist the department and making sure the process may be smoother and that we could have some of the parks back up, because our people, they want to get back in and get involved and exercise, and so we could have a healthier community. And also for our young people, they could have more things to do. Looking for seeing intergalactic sporting events between our islands.
And that's a big thing. There are lots of people in our community, especially like you said, you're talking about young people, and this is and you're on a committee that for a lot of our young people, the things that you're going to be doing, it affects. And one of the things that I know that has become an issue is like you said, it's sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
Organized sports.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's something that the Department of Education is going to have to deal with in regards to scholastic sports. For our students, especially those that may be looking for college recruiters and need to get game film and game experience out there so they can be recruited and to get scholarships to go away, to get an education. And on the other side, even recreational activities like whether it's basketball tournaments or football tournaments. And we know with COVID-19, it's not necessarily been something that has been readily available in a territory. It's not been something that's been focused, because obviously our community, our elected leaders have been focusing their time on saving lives and making sure that we're all safe. But there has to be a point where we get to where we are able to integrate things that our young people need, that will keep them out of trouble, that will keep them occupied, and for some of them, give them the opportunity to earn college scholarships. So are you going to be having that conversation with the Commissioner of Health and our Commissioner of Sports, Park and Recreation, and looking at how you may assist, whether it's through legislation and appropriation, or just even in bridging that gap and talking about maybe mandated vaccines for like if you having tournaments, and that's a way to get our young people vaccinated. Is that something you guys you're thinking about, something that you are planning to do?
I am, but I agree with one of the things the governor mentioned tonight, that safety is our first priority, and making sure our community is safe. So I understand that some of the implementations that have been placed is to keep us safe. But I'm looking forward to the day when we don't have to worry about COVID, and we could come back on the fields and come back on the court and come back and do these intergalactic events to make this possible and have our young people back active. So I was happy also to hear about the commission, the youth commission. So I'm looking forward to having great things and conversations.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank
you
you,
taking your time. You've been so generous with us today. I appreciate it. We look forward to seeing what you're going to do in 2021 as your first year as an elected official. We look forward to see your legislation, to look forward to you chairing your committee. So we want to thank you so much for taking your time
Thank you.
and joining us here on Business of Politics.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. And so I thank you so much for listening. We're gonna kick this back to the studio with Dotson and Ali. Have a great day.
Great job, Ashley. Ashley was good. I could listen to Ashley all night asking questions. Then
He was great.
You ever think, this is the last question? Yeah, right. He's got like 7 more afterwards.
Yep.
Well, we're going to take it back down to Siobhan, the attorney Siobhan Thomas, if she's still there with us. I have a good question I think she might want to answer. But before we get to that, let me ask you another question. Or have it part of the discussion. No furloughs, as the governor said. No layoffs. No payless paydays. Tremendous job by the governor. And he talked about it tonight. At first, when he was going through the protocol of discussing COVID-19, I was wondering why it never came up, but he saved it for the very end. And the issue of paying taxes that the lieutenant governor spoke about also. People are home, they're paying their property taxes, their grocery taxes, people are saving their money. And that's what's keeping the government afloat.
Yeah, and that those have been record numbers.
Numbers, yeah.
Which is what the governor was saying. And so, when it comes to the economy and the cash flow, I felt that those were really important points and information for, the governor to share. I definitely thought, as you said, right at that very end, he talked about there weren't any furloughs, the layoffs and things like that. Also very important, information. Was there anything that struck out to you as far as like new announcements? The governor shared several things, like 1,300 checks for teachers coming out this week as a token of their appreciation, with handling virtual learning and stuff like that. The merger of WICO and Port Authority. But
that's sort of significant because it comes out almost every state of the territory, just from a lot of governors in the past. And it seems like he has a plan to submit to the legislature to get it done finally. And if it does, I think it'll more than likely help us turn the economy around with respect to WICO and Port Authority with one-stop shopping. Everybody has a significant role to play within that organization. I think that'll be good. What also stuck out to me was the healthcare, and I was wanting to talk to Siobhan about that. The opening of the Wang Louis Hospital. We lose a lot of money yearly with folks leaving the territory to go different places across the nation for healthcare. We should be doing that here. And I know the doctors here would appreciate, more to be done here so that our patients can stay here. When you take all our insurance money and give it to somebody else,
that's money out of the territory.
It's not going to be spent here, and that's unfortunate. But I wanted Siobhan to get in on that. Where is Siobhan anyway? 75 million contract with Wadzilla with WAPA. Now, we knew WAPA was going to come up.
Yeah, we definitely did, and I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
That money, that contract that WAPA has for renewable energy, I thought that was very, very interesting. I also thought, right at the very end, as the governor was sharing about WAPA, talking about how he's calling on WAPA to further investigate, and I don't want to misquote the governor, but the billing process and wanting to improve that. I think that's very important, especially for people to hear, because these aren't new issues.
Right. And what was interesting was when he sort of questioned the style of management in WAPA. I mean, he actually called them out. So I guess WAPA is now I wouldn't say on the defensive, but I guess they'll be a little bit more progressive in getting things done. Because it is a concern. You hear constituents continuously, day after day, month after month, week after week, whatever, and talk about what's going on. You get a bill today and it says one thing, you get another bill. You haven't changed anything that you've done within that month, but your bill completely changes. So, people are concerned about that. And so am I, because who wants to pay a large light bill? You want to be able to relax. And it has a different problem with, okay, we're going to take a little quick break here. Not a quick break, but we're going to kick it back to Ashley, who has Senator Dwayne DeGraff. Go ahead, Ashley.
Good evening, and we're back here outside of the legislature. We have been blessed to have Senator Dwayne DeGraff with us, the minority leader of the Minority Caucus. So we want to thank you for joining us today and taking the time out this evening to come and talk to the people here on business of politics. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent, man. How are you and your family?
Oh, doing great, blessed. So I want to thank you for coming out. We just heard the governor's 2021 State of the Territory address. What were some of your thoughts on the address, and what are some of the things that stood out to you that you feel like the Minority Caucus will be able to work with the current administration on?
Thank you for the question. Right off the bat, I would have to give the governor A on the COVID response. He put together a team, and his team did excellent. My condolences go out to the family of the 24 individuals who lost their lives. It's sad. But in comparison to some of the things that was mentioned, I think that we fare very well for the COVID-19 thus far, having vaccines, having testing, and education. So I think that was excellent. I would have liked to have heard in regards to Charlotte Kimmelman, the Cancer Research Center, where our Virgin Islanders have to leave the territory so could stay here. Waste management, cleaning up the island, that's another issue with me. But basically the governor made it sound like everything is pie in the sky and hunky-dory. We got a lot of money, and in regards to right off the bat having all the money, yeah, we got it. Ain't gonna hit me, man. I'm good. Thank you.
Listen.
Yes, the GERS. GERS is one of the big, it is number one issue to me. GERS goes down, the territory goes down. So in addition to hearing the governor say increase in revenue generation, I passed a bill, I sponsored a bill, Act was now Act 8383, which allows for 50% of any additional money over the revenue generated for the budget 2020, 50% of that money will go to GRS. Now that you're saying that let's take the money and put it to GRS, so stop scaring individuals like he said is being taken place. GRS has its problem. We have to fix it. But again, if there's legislation that is there, that was passed, that he signed, let's send that money to GRS. He mentioned that it was $60 million increase, then let's send the $30 million to GRS. And in addition, for 2021, up to $50 million, any additional money. So again, to hear revenue generation, I think was great. But again, let's stop scaring our elderly. We need facilities for our elderly. We have to know that our youth we're looking out for, and where would our elderly go? Those are things to it was an excellent speech. But a lot of legislation that he spoke of was passed right here, the 32nd, when I was there, the 33rd. So we took part in doing our due. Yes, it isn't everything that he sent down is going to be passed right off the bat. I have legislation in there still from the 32nd. So again, I stand in support of the governor. So as a minority senator, and if we put together a full minority coalition, we'll stand in support of my colleagues in the majority and the governor. But we're going to be dealing with check and balances. We're not going to be yes man unless it involves supporting the people and for the people.
So this is my question to you. Mm-hmm. Is there an official minority caucus?
Well, we haven't formed yet. We just wanted to make sure in the rules you had in numbers in terms of 6 or 5 can form. In checking the rules, I don't think they have a number, so that's our intent to do that.
Have there been a discussion about a minority caucus agenda?
Yes.
So what are some of the things that will be in the minority caucus agenda that your caucus, when it's formed, will be hoping to attain outside of checks and balances? Is there any legislative priorities for the minority caucus?
Right now, we number one, if you want to say legislative priority, would be to support the majority. Because as a 4-person minority, we can't get any bills passed. We need 8 individuals. So we support. But again, like I said, in the check and balances part, we're going to let you know that, hey, I don't have a problem with party politics, but I'm not a part of a party. The party I'm a part of is the People's Party. Once it's to support the people, we're going to support that. So we're willing to support, but again, not be rubber stamping anything just for doing it.
Okay, well, was there anything else that the governor saw? GRS was definitely something you were passionate about.
Yeah.
And I understand because there are thousands of Virgin Islanders that depend on GRS, and the greater Virgin Islands community depends on the GRS.
True.
And you know, if it was to go insolvent, if we don't have, whether it's restructuring or we don't address this issue, it's going to have a detrimental effect on our economy. So I definitely understand that. So one of the questions that you asked earlier, in that statements that you made, you spoke about a act now, right? Because it was a bill that you passed that became law. So it's now an act in regards to anything over an appropriation of, you said, a revenue generating over 50% of it will go to the GRS.
Correct.
And I believe there's the governor talked about having $60 million extras. What you're saying
in October, he mentioned that there was $60 million extra. So then, hey, put the $30 million to GRS. Stop treating the people that way, you know.
And so could that be part of the money that he is referring to? He talked about his speech about giving back maybe the $10 million in a retroactive payment to retirees,
right,
and also the return of the 8% cut that the labor unions won in court. So and in your priorities, which one do you think should come first?
I think GRS is number one.
Okay.
The 8% number two.
Okay.
And also the $10 million for the retirees 65 and over, which was already passed.
Okay.
So again, it's like that. Because, like I said, the governor gave a great speech in regards to things that he intended to do, things that was done. But the reality is, the people of the territory are suffering. You know, in terms of, again, suffering in terms of the COVID. He stated we haven't really seen the impact of the COVID from 2020. We're going to feel it in 2021. So again, those are issues to address. We have an entire territory to address. And let's not forget our disabled. Let's not forget our veterans. But again, I do support the governor's speech because he mentioned great things. Crime. I'm a 26-year retiree of being a police, retired deputy chief. Crime, a community issue. We must get the community involved. So there are different things. Like I say, to go through the entire speech, it was long, it was passionate. I support the majority of things. There are some things I would have liked to see added, but in regards to the summation of it, that you're talking that we're generating revenue, let's deal with GRS first.
Okay. And I thank you so much, Senator DeGraff. I appreciate you joining us today.
Yes,
this evening at Business of Politics. I know this was a long day. You guys had session earlier today, and then you come here and you had to listen to the State of the Territory address, and then you still took the time out to join us today. So we appreciate you. We thank you. We look forward to seeing what you will accomplish in 2021 and what legislative bills or priorities the Minority Caucus may bring up that will help the lives of the people here in the Virgin Islands. So thank you again for joining us today.
You're most
thank you
welcome,
so
man.
much.
Thank you too.
All right. You have a great, a blessed evening.
Hey, have one too. Likewise. Thank you very much.
Once again, this is Ashley here at the Legislature, and we're going to take it back to the studio with Dotson James.
Let's go back to Senator Carrion. When he was there, he spoke about he's the chairman of the Committee on Youth, Sports, Parks, and Recreation, and talking about what needs to be done with sports, getting sports to open back up again. Talk about the car racing and the horse racing. Now, as far as sports for the youths are concerned, we're talking soccer, like you said, volleyball,
basketball and
stuff like that.
Contact sports.
What are your thoughts with regards to that happening? Because it's not happening right now. What's the fear? Is the fear still of children getting COVID, or is it what is the actual fear? Nobody wants to take that plunge to get the children back out on the field, which we should we should try, because there's a lot of pent-up energy and they need to release that energy instead of just being home with the fingers going,
playing video games and getting bored, or God forbid, but getting into trouble.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because there's and first of all, safety is at the utmost importance when it comes to COVID. Absolutely. It was something though that we didn't hear in the governor's speech as far as like a game plan for getting contact sports in the youth, though it was a very thorough and a very a lot of details in his speech. And I think everybody, wants to have sports back. Actually, I did speak with the governor in my job as a reporter, and we spoke about that. And he's a huge sports fan. He definitely wants sports to come back and wants it to be done safely. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had more.
Right.
And we need to, it would be great to see from our legislators to the governor to
the Department of Sports Parks.
Yeah, and Department of Health to really come up with a plan, because it's so important for our youth to get back into sports and to start to feel like there's an opportunity to be recruited for college sports, get scholarships, and just for overall physical health in general. So it's something that I think it needs to be put on the forefront. I definitely believe that a lot of our government officials want to see it happen, but we need to start having that conversation, because we are seeing places in small towns on the U.S. mainland, even in Puerto Rico, they are bringing back contact sports, and they're able to do it safely. It doesn't mean that things are flawless, and we have to keep it as safe as possible. But I do believe that the conversation needs to start happening more.
I know during the late last year, Sports Parks and Recreation had a situation where they were trying to help out like seniors in high school. The Combine, and they had what they did in the bubble.
Yeah, and it was fantastic.
Yes.
Commissioner White and the Department of Health and UVI, they all worked together, and it
worked out fantastic.
It was fantastic.
And I believe there is some talk with respect to trying to get softball back up and running again. How they're going to do it, I'm sure they're working on it, and it's going to be interesting how it's rolled out and when it's rolled out, because again, and not only the youths but people in general need something to do. But again, we have to do it safely.
Yes.
We have to do it within restrictions. I mean, if it means you have to line a particular softball team 6 feet apart before you go bat, well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's simply what it is. We're going to do that. Now, as far as car racing and horse racing is concerned, I keep hearing the community is in general say that's something for the youths. Car racing is very expensive. That's not something for the youths. Now, it's something, and horse racing, those are very expensive sports. It's something that the youths can be groomed into, raised up into it, like I was as a youngster, and I got to the point where I became a professional horse trainer. But it's something that we need to work out. But horse racing is called a sport of kings. So, and I'm not saying it kicks out the youths, but the youths need to get involved. But it has to be understood that it's a multi-million or billion-dollar operation. It's not just a cultural thing in general. It's not a cultural. It's not just a part of our culture. It's bigger than that.
Absolutely, because you could be a fan and just be able to enjoy it, but to be fully immersed on the level as adults, to your point, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, when you're immersed in it, you will find out. We're going to take it back down to Ashley again, because Ashley is on a roll tonight, and we got to get Ashley back out again. He's with Senator Alma Francis.
Good evening, and we're here back at the legislature, located here on the capital of St. Thomas. We're here with, and once again, we have another minority senator, a freshman senator at that, Senator Francis Heiliger.
Yes.
And we thank you so much for joining us this evening, taking your time out today and coming and giving the people that's listening to the broadcast carried by Business of Politics here and be able to answer some questions. So my first question is, how are you doing today?
I am wonderful. I'm happy to be here. I was a little bit excited about my first state of the territory as a new incoming senator in the 34th legislature. So it was met with high optimism.
And how was the experience?
Well, it was a little bit longer than anticipated. Over the years, they usually run about a little over an hour. This one ran a little bit over 2 hours. So I guess that was the major difference from what I've noticed and participated in throughout the years.
So I'm going to get into it.
Yes.
First question. So the governor laid out is what he has accomplished in the past, especially in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then he also laid out some things that he hasn't been able to get done, but he would like to get done, and then some things that he's going to be pushing forward. Was there anything that you heard in the speech that aligns with any legislative priorities of your office?
Well, one of the things that he did speak about was the returning of the 8% to the over 5,000 employees by utilizing the excise tax funds that is going to be coming back online this year and next fiscal year to return those funds. I thought that was an excellent thing to be doing. He also talked about introducing legislation and sending down to the 34th for a catalyst fund, where he spoke about banks in the territory not really doing enough to assist small businesses and new businesses to really get a chance to develop and expand in the territory. And as much as you want to put in that $5 million into the Catalyst Fund, I think it's a good piece of legislation. Maybe as a government, we should probably push a little bit more to try to find more banks that we can partner with to really assist individuals and entrepreneurs here in the territory.
So is that something we're going to be looking at? Is your office going to be looking at? Are you going to be looking at our banking code and working with our lieutenant governor to see what may stop other banks from coming in, and maybe looking at easing our restrictions, passing legislation to modernize our banking code so that we can attract more banks?
I am 100% in support of small businesses. And one of the things that small businesses need is capital in order to thrive. Some of them need it to even open. And whatever I can do as a senator to really assist with that, I will be focusing on, even if it means I have to partner with the government, specifically the executive branch, and reaching out to the lieutenant governor through banking and insurance to really see what can be done in order to get this done.
And just go ahead. Sorry, you need to
he also spoke a little bit about one of the things that's near and dear to me, where he spoke about some of the vocational programs and the schools changing. Gladys Abraham, for one, is going to be revitalized and revamped to move the Wheatley Skills Center over there, which I think would be a good opportunity. I am looking forward to a lot of the necessary funding, because this past week I realized, as a senator doing tours of the CTE program, that some of the funding is not going exactly where it needs to be to get to these vocational programs. And as you know, here in our territory, when we had the unfortunate hurricanes, we realized we had a shortage and a void of individuals for contractors and plumbing and all these different things. And before getting into the legislature, I was one of those individuals saying, you know, we need trade schools, we need trade schools. But then I realized they are embedded in our school system. We have the center, we have the teachers that want to teach. The problem is the grant monies is getting absorbed within the education machine, and it needs to be separated and go to the board so it could be disseminated and get to these programs so that our young people, it is my hope that when they're able to graduate, not only from the academic side, but also be able to graduate with a vocational trade as well. So it's a lot of things I was listening to that I was very impressed with, but also he spoke a little bit on tourism. And when he touched on the issue of tourism and he talked about the programs that they're about to kick back online, like Reconnect to Paradise, you know, different programs, vibes like no other. He spoke about these, and for me, I think that's a good thing. But for me, I wish that they already, because as I look around to a lot of the other Caribbean destinations during the lockdown, they were really marketing and pushing their destinations so that when they opened up, they were already in the minds of the public. I want to go there. They've been really, so I think we really need to get on the ball with that and really trying to get people to understand and rebrand and remarket the Virgin Islands the way that it should be, because tourism is important to us and we have to do our part. I mean, he did speak about the influx and increase of individuals coming through air flights and different things about that since we started after the lockdown, which is a plus. But I think a more concerted effort needs to be done right now, sooner as opposed to later.
So, quick question.
Yes.
What committees are you a member of?
I am a member of several committees, but today the legislature on the Senate floor reorganized again, and I was removed from one of the committees, and they made some different changes as they did not attempt to read it, so the public might not have fully understood what happened today, but they did shift around some of the committees. I was on government operations, education, sports, parks, and recreation. Those are some of the committees that I currently sit on. And I think for me, looking at it across the board, and I tell people, no matter what committee you put me on, I came here to work. You could put me on the garbage committee and I will produce. It doesn't matter. Because the people elected 15 of us to come in here and do the work on their behalf. And it doesn't matter where I am placed. My only purpose is to serve the public.
And so let's follow up to that. So one of the reasons why I asked the question,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the things you talked about when you were talking about grants monies for the career and technical schools
Mm-hmm.
being absorbed in the education budget, we were just wondering if you were on the education committee or everything
I
development
was,
workforce,
as of
or if
today.
you were on the or if you were on the finance committee, because these are things that you will have the ability to address.
Well,
right, in
one of the
budget
beautiful
markups, right?
things about being a senator, even though you're on a committee or you're not, you can go to every single meeting and you will be heard. The only difference is you can't vote on what bills come out of those committees. So if I am not on finance, I could still go to the finance meeting, I could still get the package, I could still research, I could still have my voice be heard and input that could potentially affect the outcome of a vote. So as a senator, my goal is to make sure, try to attend as many as I can to be as effective as I possibly can.
So moving forward, I mean,
Yes.
I said you touched on a few different things. So I just want to make sure I
Yes.
highlight each of them. So we talked about a career and technical institute and making sure that we figure out a way to separate the funding that gets absorbed in the education
Yes.
budget
Yes.
to make sure it goes to the places that it needs to be.
Yes.
Are you going to present legislation
I
in
already
the future?
did.
Oh, okay. So this is
Literally,
so-
the day I came off of that, before you could blink, it was already submitted,
there's some-
check for preemption, and it's good to go.
And it's something. So you're already hit
I came to work. I didn't come
the
to
ground
play.
running. I mean, before we wrap up, is there any other pieces of legislation that you may have submitted that you want to highlight here before we wrap up on this?
Well, so far I've submitted over 20 of them in the
Oh
first
wow,
couple of
okay.
days.
You really came.
I came to work.
Okay,
I
okay,
came to work.
okay.
I ain't come to play. Y'all don't understand.
So just give me one more. One priority before we close.
One of them, I wanted to create an Office of Revenue Generation within the legislature.
Okay.
And many people say, well, what does that mean? I said, one of the things that I found as senators is part of our responsibility is to generate revenues for the coffers. And a lot of times, some of the ideas we come up with, they become law, but they just sit there. Because now we're depending on the executive branch to now execute those laws. And it's really up to them if they want to touch them with a 10-foot pole or if they don't. So my thought process was, what if we created an Office of Revenue Generation within the legislature so that once we are completed with coming up with these revenue generating ideas, we have a team of whether 3 or 4 people within this division that is going to do the research. Say we wanted to start a water bottling company, a private-public partnership to take those revenue generation and give it to GRS, because we have to create pockets of solvency to assist GRS. And in doing so, I created a bill and it just sits there. But if I send it to this office, they take the time out to say, what is it going to take to market this? How many companies are they going to reach out to? Hey, are you interested in partnering with the Virgin Islands? So by the time they're done with doing the marketing, the cost startup, by the time they're done with seeing 20 companies want to partner with us, they could produce a report that could go to all 15 senators, as well as the executive branch. So it's almost like saying, guess what? I'm not giving you an excuse to just let it sit there. Because this is potentially $30 million that could be coming in to the coffers of the general fund. So it's stuff like this where I'm trying to push the needle forward, as opposed to just saying I created a legislation and it just sits there stagnant.
So this would, I'm assuming, would happen prior to the bill being passed. Passed because it's something that, because once it's passed, then it becomes the privilege of the executive branch. But I'm getting the signals to wrap. I know. I know. Thank you so much for you taking your time out on this evening to be here with us on the business of politics and to answer some questions. We thank you for your responses. We look forward to see what you're going to accomplish in the year 2021.
Definitely.
In the 34th legislature. We look forward to seeing your legislation get before the committee, so we can start to hear some more about it and see how the legislation that you present affects the people of the Virgin Islands.
Definitely.
So thank you so much, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a blessed night, everyone.
No, and thank you so much. Want to thank once again. I want to thank you for having us, for being with us today. Oh, sorry. So we have Senator Carla Joseph.
Yes.
With us. I thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule for being here with us. I know it's been a long day, and so I thank you once again for joining us. How are you doing today?
I am doing awesome and I'm doing wonderful this evening. And I want to just say thank you too for doing this. You're doing something to make sure that our public, our voters, our residents are informed about things that are happening here in the Virgin Islands. So really thank you, Mr. Sutherland, for your initiative to come out here and the crew to really interview some of the senators here as well as our governor and lieutenant governor. Thank you so much for that as well.
Well, I want to thank you. And this is your first State of the Territory address because you are also a freshman senator, right?
Totally fresh.
So what were your thoughts on it? How was the experience for you?
It was very awesome for me because, one, the governor made such a great speech. It was very upbeat. He was really animated. You could see he's very passionate about his presentation and what he's presenting and looking forward ahead for us. What I especially enjoyed hearing is the level, because I'm the chairperson of the Committee on Government Operation. Then he talked about, WAPA being accountable and its management needing to be a little bit fixed there. So I thought that was great. Also, what I really, really thought was the icing over the cake is that he spent a lot of time talking, justifiably so, talking about how the administration has responded to the COVID-19 pandemic in the Virgin Islands. So that is a great thing, that some of the things that he spoke about, and of course some of the legislation that he's going to be pushing down the way for us here.
Oh, so were there any legislative priorities that you have, that your office may have, that align to what you heard today, that's going to be a priority of your office moving forward, that you are even more encouraged? I mean, you did speak about WAPA in your earlier response. Was there anything else that he spoke about that you were like, I submitted legislation about this, and we're online, or you plan to, or is something that your office has made a priority when you got elected?
Well, some of the things I campaigned, mostly what I campaigned about was definitely workforce development, and he spoke about that extensively with this new program that he's coming online with training over 625 people. And I'm like, all right, that's what I like. I love when our people are trained and able to go to work and earn money. Nothing feels better than a person that they can go every 2 weeks or a week and say, hey, I'm collecting a check, okay, because I have labored and this is what my labor produces, this check, and to know that it's going to be something that is here and they're building here. So definitely I'm on board, all wrapped up and ready to go and packed up, ready to go for that. Anything and everything that is helping our young people especially get to work, get trained, and get into the workforce, I'm going to be 100% behind. So I'm really grateful to him for letting us know about that. What I didn't hear too much of, I don't think I heard anything about, is how we're going to be dealing with our aging population, our elders. They're definitely in need of care. Some of them, we don't have sufficient staffing to support and bring forward quality health care for our seniors, and we don't have a facility for our rehabilitation for our seniors. If they go and they have a little fall or what have you, and they need to get the rehabilitation services and care, we don't have that in place here fully in the Virgin Islands because Seaview is no longer operable and receiving those kind of clients because they have lost their certification by CMS. So what I would love to see happen, and I did introduce legislation to purchase Seaview and rehabilitate it. I'm hoping that would work. I've already hit the ground running, working with the owner of Seaview, Dr. Alfred Heath. I have some other entities and other persons who are interested in working with Dr. Heath and the like to bring it back in, get it rehabilitated, and let's try to make our seniors a priority because they have worked so hard for us, giving us so much of their time, energy, and their sacrifice. This is their twilight years. They deserve to be cared for and be appreciated with dignity.
Thank you so much for that response. And you spoke about appropriating, and you submitted legislation. Another one of the freshman senators that has hit the ground running. And you spoke about submitting legislation to appropriate funding to purchase the CVU Center,
right,
to then help for the local government to then get it reaccredited. Is that the plan, so that they could then kind of address some of the issues that you were referring to?
Yes. So that is part of it, yes, to get some of those issues addressed.
Have you, in your legislation, did you find a funding source for this? Did you?
Well, we could always use one thing. And I'm glad you mentioned funding sources, because you could use a general fund, one, but there's also, reprogramming money from CDBG funds. That's a HUD fund, and I'm very familiar with HUD funding because I managed federal grants for over 10 years. And acquisition of property and real estate and land is allowable cost under those type of funding sources.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you coming here and taking your time out of, I know you had a long day, and joining us here on the business of politics. Thank you so much, Senator Joseph.
Me. Thank you.
We look forward to seeing what you're going to accomplish in this upcoming calendar year. We look forward to the legislation, piece of legislation that your office will put out, and then hopefully it has a great impact on the people of the Virgin Islands.
I'm hopeful too, and thank you kindly for doing this again. And love you, Virgin Islands. Love you, Virgin Islands. Love you, and I'm here to serve. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And here, we thank you. We just had Senator Joseph. We are about to welcome on our Senate President, Donna Gregory. We know that she had a long day today.
I did. Oh my goodness.
And we are so honored and so happy and so blessed to have you here and joining us on the business of politics. We want to thank you for joining us today. How are you doing today?
Well, I am great. Despite having a long day. It was a long, exciting day too. It's a day that I learned a lot. I got an opportunity to truly see who and what I'm dealing with here in the 34th legislature. So, I'm ready. I'm ready.
I can tell you this. It does not look like you had a long day. You look radiant. You're still glowing.
Oh,
we wouldn't be able to tell what time it is. So we thank you for taking the time out and joining us here today.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Most definitely. So we just listened to the governor's State of the 2021 State of the Territory address.
Yes.
I know there was a lot. I mean, from the things that he accomplished and the 33rd legislature accomplished, in especially when it had to do with the COVID-19 pandemic response to other legislation, to the GRS, to field securitization bill, and the American Cannabis Act. There's so many places to go with it. But the first question I'm asking is, you are now the Senate President, right?
Yes,
you are in control of the body, right?
Well, I don't use it. I don't think that we should say I'm in control of the body. I am the presiding officer.
Presiding officer.
People a lot of times think that because you're the Senate President, you're in control of the body. But one of the things that we always have to remember that every single member of this body is a duly elected member. I am just the person for such a time like this to serve as the presiding officer. And of course, the terminology for the presiding officer is president. Right. So, but I'm not in control. Okay. I have to take control when things get out of control because, you have to have that reasonable mind and reasonable minds have to prevail in this institution. So, but I look forward to working with my colleagues.
There's a reason why there is a leadership
Absolutely.
position. So
yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
So one of the questions I have, you are a part of the Majority Caucus.
Yes,
right?
Sir.
What's the agenda of the Majority Caucus? Do you guys have an agenda that you guys legislative priorities that you guys have? What's three of the main priorities of the Majority Caucus moving forward?
Okay, so one of the things that we did when we were organizing the Majority Caucus is we said, listen, we have our committee meetings on the floor and everything is out there, and that's an opportunity for senators to ask questions, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things that I thought that was very important is that we established subcommittees. So this particular 34th legislature has subcommittees. We have a subcommittee on GRS and the economy. one on health and crime, and another one on energy and infrastructure.
Okay.
So those are our basic priorities. And of course, the governor touched on many of them this evening. And you know, I have to say it's so important that the governor also recognizes the importance of working with the legislature. And because it's important to me and my colleagues, as soon as I think we've already written a letter to ask him to, we want to meet with him so we could begin to discuss exactly what you just asked. What are his priorities and what are our priorities, and how we can work together as leaders of this territory to move the needle on progress here in the Virgin Islands.
And I mean,
yes.
we must be in sync, because literally going to be my next question. You know, from what you heard today, the governor laid out his priorities for the year 2021. And the reason why I asked what was the priorities of the majority caucus, did you see any cohesion and possibilities where you think that there can be some seamless cohesion with the majority caucus and the current administration to get certain things accomplished, to get certain legislations passed that will benefit the people of the Virgin Islands? And then the second part of that would be, where are some areas where you saw some differences that they may need to be some further collaboration and further conversations moving forward?
Okay, so let's talk about the priorities that the governor laid out. So a lot of the pieces of legislation that he made reference to, we've already submitted a lot of those legislation. One of the things that he made reference to particularly is, I'm surprised you didn't ask me about the 8%, the return of the 8%, but let me just talk about that because I think it's important that I talk about it. So, you know, I am all in favor of the government employees receiving what's due, their 8%. However, we have to figure out how to juggle between paying that 8% and how we're going to shore up the GRS. And when I sat in the 33rd legislature, I submitted legislation once we heard that the district court was moving on returning the excise taxes to the territory. I submitted legislation to establish a GRS stabilization fund out of the excise taxes. So we're going to have to work with the governor to figure out how we could come to a happy medium to, in fact, address that, because the employees that are, in fact, that he referenced, of course, government employees, and of course, we're talking about the government employees retirement system. So eventually those employees will retire. Of course. And I'm certain that some of them have already retired. So we have to figure out how to make that work. What else did he speak about that was very important to me? He also talked about the Port Authority's property, the Adelita Cancrine School, yes, and changing that over to a major cargo shipment point.
Yes.
And he talked about education receiving the funding from the lease of that property, etc., etc. That's also a piece of legislation that I have submitted. Oh, so okay. Yeah, so we've been clearly great minds think alike, and we have to come to some happy medium on how we are going to address those issues. But the one thing that I will say, though, and I want to go back to the GRS, is, the governor talked a lot about the secretization, and I believe that, so we are at the point where collectively, and when I say collectively, I'm talking about from a legislative and an executive branch perspective, where we have to work together to address the issues that we are experiencing with GRS. If it's up, it's up. If it's down, it's down. But we are at the point where we have to tell the people what it is. And in order for us to do that, I believe it's time for us to look at this from a comprehensive approach and do all that we can as elected leaders to address it. I don't want to address this from a piecemeal perspective. I think that we are way past piecemeal. We have to get to the point where we really come together, and it's my fervent hope. I like to use that word. It is my fervent hope that we can really, really work with the governor to begin to truly address the issues that we have with the government employees retirement system.
So to that end, I know in 2019, because COVID-19 happened, the governor spoke about creating a task force that was supposed to look at not just ways of saving GRS, but also look at alternatives to GRS. I'm not sure exactly, if COVID-19 impacted the organization or the formation of that. Is that something, based on what you just said, that the 34th legislature is interested in, and maybe even codifying it in an actual a bill?
Well, I think we are way past the task force discussion. Okay. The governor did talk about the task force, and then he felt it was no longer necessary. I think we're way past the task force issue. I think we have to come together as legislators and members of the executive branch, and that's why I said that we form these subcommittees within the legislature, because of course every single legislator cannot work on the issues with GRS. So we have to identify our colleagues who have those strengths and begin to address those issues from that collective fashion along with the executive branch. I think that what's important, and I can't stop saying it, is how do we work together to address the issues that we have in the Virgin Islands. And the elephant in the room, one of the elephants in the room, is GRS. But there's something else I want to touch on, because you asked me a question and I hate not to answer questions.
Okay.
So there's a lot of wind and noise, so the cars are passing. But let me just say too that one of the areas that I thought that I was a little disappointed with the governor's State of the Territory address, if I'm going to be transparent with you, is the fact that he talked about demolishing schools, but he didn't give us any hope as to when we will see a new school or new schools built in the territory. Tell me 2025, tell me 2023, but we need to know, what are we projecting? What is that timeline? And I know that there are challenges with the federal government, but give us some timeline so we could know what we're working towards. People want to know. People want to know. So, and I want to know.
Yes. And I think you agree.
Yes.
I think definitely people want to know, especially people with children.
Parents want to know. Yes, the community wants to know. So
where
I think that was very much a part of his State of the Territory that I was a little disappointed with. And of course, I'm big on education, and he did talk about the fact that in 2020 they were focused on addressing curriculum and instruction, K3 initiatives, etc. But he didn't say, okay, so now that we are deep into COVID and we know how to address the safety issues, etc. And I mean, of course, it's ever changing, it's very fluid. When is education going to get back on task with addressing curriculum and instruction? You know why? Because there is so much loss. And I'm very concerned. And when I say loss, I mean educational loss, learning loss. I'm very concerned that, in the next, we're talking about workforce development, but then we're not, our kids have lost so much from 2017 storms, and then now we are in the COVID-19 situation. So, we really need to figure out how we're going to strike that balance to ensure that, come the next 5-6 years, we don't find ourselves in a situation where our children are just not properly educated. It's a challenge.
I know.
Yes.
And I want to thank you so much for taking your time out for joining us here. I know you had a long and busy day,
yes, I did.
But you do an excellent job. I also like what I'm hearing with the subcommittees, because it looks like the majority caucus are playing to each other's strength. You're maximizing your capacity so that you guys will be able to address a variety of issues. And hopefully the collaboration between the majority caucus and the executive branch, the co-equal branches of government, are then able to really get to work and addressing some of the issues that we have with the people of the Virgin Islands.
And I'm not going to let you go just so.
Okay,
let me just say one thing.
No problem.
Those subcommittees are inclusive of non-majority
Oh,
senators.
that's
yes.
us. Oh,
yes.
okay.
Everybody got to get to work.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank
Yes.
you. I
Yes.
appreciate your time. Thank you
All right.
so much,
Thank you.
and you enjoy the rest of your evening. You have a blessed evening.
All right, and thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you so
All right,
much. You have a
appreciate
great
it.
one.
Okay.
Thank you. And that is thank you so much for having us, listening to us today on the Business of Politics. We're going to kick it back to the studio. We're going to kick it back to Dotson in the studio.
Thank you very much, Ashley. That was a very interesting conversation with Senate President. She gives us the impression that there is hope.
Yes.
So let's work on hope. She gives us the impression that we have to come and hit at a happy medium. That's going to be a little difficult, but we'll see, because it's politics as we know it. But we've been here many hours.
Yep, a few.
We're hungry.
Yeah,
So
we're hungry bad.
I'll let you start. You can give some closing remarks and let the people know how you felt about the state of the territory and your first day of working with the business of politics.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Dotson. And you mentioned the word hope, and that's really where I want to start. I thought that the State of the Territory address, as I mentioned, it was a strong speech, a lot of details, and it also gave just a lot of hope. He talked about so many things that are going on in the territory, amidst these tough times with COVID, marine industry on the rise, construction projects on the way, the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, that's now taking flight. He also didn't shy away from the tough topics, right? So GERS, WAPA challenges, and of course COVID. I think all in all, it was a very lengthy, but it needed to be lengthy. We had such a different year, unlike any other from last year. And one thought that I did have was that the State of the Territory address last year, could have no way have thought or even fathomed what kind of year 2020 would be. So for all the plans and everything that I was trying to do, everything got turned upside down. So here we are a year later, and the territory has definitely tried to come together and do the best we can to navigate this global pandemic. I think hope, again, has been a buzzword tonight. And I do look forward to seeing what the future holds. And we just try to stay as safe as possible, do the best we can every day, and we here. We here.
Thank you very much, Ali. Is Siobhan here with us to give us some final close-up? Attorney Siobhan Thomas. Not with us, I don't think. She may have. There you go. There's Siobhan. Thank you, Siobhan.
The State of the Territory was really a great reminder of where we've been as a Virgin Islands, but also where we're going to be going into the future. As far as healthcare, the improvement that we'll be looking for in healthcare, as far as tourism, that there's more airlift coming into St. Thomas. I would like to see more airlift into St. Croix, but that there's hope there, that we have an economy that is surviving despite the fact that we have lost several of our revenue sources. And there are states that didn't have 2 hurricanes in 2017, and they are not experiencing the economy that we are experiencing here in the Virgin Islands. The fact that even for health, we're viewing health in a very, as a continuum going into the future, and not just necessarily as far as, physical issues, but also mental health as part of that continuum. So I think we do have a lot to look forward to as a territory. And so cheers to 2021, everyone. I look forward to all that we'll accomplish together.
Thank you very much, Siobhan. Way to go to wrap it up. I just want to say tonight, I thought the governor did a tremendous job in trying to cover as many of the topics that affects the residents of this community. Of course, he couldn't get into anything, into minor details, but I think he did a tremendous job. I think most people would be happy with the state of the territory. I know for sure I am. I think Ali said she was. I just want to say thank you for being with us this evening. It's been a pleasure working with Ali, Ashley, Attorney Siobhan Thomas. And I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, it's been a great time spending time with you this evening on the business of politics.